Chapter 1001. When Ling Han reported to the Academy for the record, all the forces in the imperial capital had received this news. What, this guy actually left the Academy at this time, and even wants to leave the imperial capital? Is he seeking death? How could the Luo clan and Zhao clan let go of this hatred? Once he leaves the imperial capital, he'll definitely die. Indeed, no matter how talented he is, he's only in the medium extreme of the mountain river tier. His battle prowess definitely can't surpass the consummate level. There are too many people that can suppress him. Does he think he can have nothing to fear with the Ninth King's support? Though he's a genius, he's too stupid. Talent in martial art has nothing to do with one's conduct. It's fine not to have such a genius. He'll only cause trouble, and he doesn't know when to stop. All of a sudden, the major forces that originally wanted to recruit Ling Han all chose to retreat. At first they had stopped and watched. After all, Ling Han had offended Zhao Luan, and if they recruited Ling Han, they would risk offending the Zhao clan. But now Ling Han was acting so recklessly, which made them all shake their heads. If they recruited Ling Han back, it was entirely possible that he would bring upon himself a great calamity before he could even grow up and destroy their own clan. Luo clan. This brat actually ran out of the imperial capital. Luo Hongdao was stunned at first. He couldn't believe such a stupid action. But then he laughed loudly and said, "Then he really is seeking death. Go arrange for someone to kill him. The people of the Dark Night Hall are too unreliable. They haven't killed a minor character in the Mountain River tier after so long. Since he wants to run out, then clean up the matter, and it has nothing to do with us. It's 100,000 true origin stones, why give it away for nothing? Most importantly, retrieve the Crimson Ground locking net. The clan paid a huge price for it, so it definitely can't fall into the hands of others." Zhao Luan sat boldly, listening to Zuoxiao and Fan Yong's reports. He smiled coldly and said, "Father secretly obtained a batch of Mountain River stones for me, as well as some 9 Darkness Divine pills. I'm going into seclusion, and when I come out, I'll be at the peak stage of the consummate level. At that time, I will break through to the Sun Moon tier and become the youngest elite of the Sun Moon tier in the history of this empire. So, the mission to kill the ant will be given to you." "Yes, young master." Zuoxiao and Fan Yong both half knelt on the ground and respectfully accepted the order. Even though Zhao Luan had lost a lot of face, they didn't dare to lose the slightest bit of respect, because they all knew that it wasn't that Zhao Luan was inferior to Ling Han. They naturally preferred Zhao Luan. One was the son of a great general, while the other was an ant from a small world. There was even a tiny bit of comparison. The Ninth King was young, and this was the age when her temperament was fickle. She had a favorable impression of Ling Han now, but it did not mean that she would always have it in the future. No matter what, Zhao Luan was still the only son of great General Zhao, right? They were all stunned. Zhao Luan was courageous after experiencing humiliation. If he could really break through to the Sun Moon tier in a short time, he would definitely become the most dazzling star in the entire Chaotic Star's majestic empire. This step was too difficult to cross. In the entire Chaotic Star's majestic empire, at least 90% of immortal level elites were in the Mountain River tier, but those that could ultimately break through to the Sun Moon tier were less than 1 in 10,000. Zhao Luan was not even 1,000 years old now, and just thinking about it made their scalps numb. How bright was his future? The two of them were both astonished. Though their talent was slightly inferior to Zhao Luan's, they were still super geniuses who were above 2 stars and close to 3 stars. In comparison, the gap in cultivation level was obvious. They were now already over 20,000 years old, yet were only in the high extreme. This was because the cultivation resources that they had obtained were far inferior to Zhao Luan's, which further magnified the advantage of Zhao Luan's talent. Though that ant is only in the medium extreme, he has grasped a spiritual secret technique. Take these 2 jade seals, they can block about 100 spiritual attacks. Zhao Luan tossed out 2 jade seals. "Thank you, young master." Zuoxiao and Fan Yong were overjoyed. Among the divine artifacts, soul-type secret treasures were the rarest, and there were even fewer offensive ones. Most of them were defensive. But even so, defensive spiritual treasures were still incredibly valuable, because only great elites of the heavenly body tier could create them. Zhao Luan thought for a moment, but still felt that he was not confident enough, So he retrieved a treasured sword and handed it over, saying, "I'll bestow this purple moon-will sword to you. There are 9 divine patterns inscribed by my father on it, and after activating it, you can unleash the battle prowess of the consummate level of the mountain river tier." At first, Zuoxiao and Fanyong were still slightly worried. After all, Ling Han had the Crimson Ground locking net, which could make one of them lose their battle prowess and instantly kill him. But with this god tool, their confidence was greatly boosted. So what if it was the Crimson Ground locking net? They would directly shatter it. "Yes, we will definitely not disappoint, young master," they replied loudly. Shui Yinyu came to find him, and Ling Han left the imperial capital with her. After exiting the city gates, Ling Han gazed at the ancient city in the distance, a myriad of thoughts running through his mind. In this imperial capital, though he appeared normal, there was an indescribable pressure that kept reminding him that he was a hostage. And now that he had finally left, he felt an indescribable sense of relief all over his body. Though he had left once before, that was different. At that time he had Ding Lian with him, and it was like a prisoner going out for a breather. He had to and could only go to the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm, and it was not up to him to decide whether to leave or stop. "Wife, now that it's just the two of us, can you give me a hot kiss or something?" Ling Han asked with a smile. Shui Yinyu rolled her eyes at him and said, "Now that we've left the imperial capital, every step is dangerous. Can't you be a little more serious?" "All right, serious. Ling Han drew out the cloud-piercing shuttle and said, "Wife, please." Shui Yinyu did not correct his way of addressing her. This guy's skin was thicker than the city walls, and she was also enjoying it a little. They entered the cloud-piercing shuttle, and Ling Han activated the god tool. Instantly, this beautiful shuttle immediately broke through the air, its speed astonishingly fast. When it was only a small black dot in the sky, they finally heard the sound of a sonic boom. It was extremely difficult to break through the speed of sound in the immortal realm. Even Sun Moon tier elites could rarely achieve this. When the shuttle broke through the air, the monsters that followed behind all humphed loudly. "No rush, their target is definitely the Star Sea. We'll snipe them when we get there." The shuttle broke through the air, its speed incredibly fast. Shui Yinyu looked steadily forward, but her pretty face became redder and redder. Finally, she could not help but scold, "If you dare to touch me again, I'll chop it off." Ling Han chuckled but did not stop. Instead, he pulled Shui Yinyu's whole body into his embrace and said, "Wife, I like how you're tough on the outside but soft on the inside. You say no, but your body is very honest." "Pervert." Shui Yinyu scolded with a red face. "You should learn some new words. You keep saying these 2 words over and over again. I'm already tired of hearing it." "Woo." Shui Yinyu was just about to retort, but Ling Han pressed his lips against hers, and the words that reached her mouth instantly turned into enchanting moans. Her jade arms involuntarily wrapped around Ling Han's neck, her eyes misty like water. "Oh." Chapter 1002. The flying shuttle danced in the air, heading west. Ling Han and Shui Yinyu were a single man and woman, and they were also dry wood and hot fire, so it was inevitable for them to be lovey-dovey and cuddle. However, both of them restrained themselves and didn't break through to the last hurdle. Even with a flying god tool, they still spent 9 days to reach the Star Sea. The Star Sea was an inland sea. Legend had it that a long time ago this was a plain, and one day a star fell from the sky and crashed into this place, forming a vast sea. It was speculated that this was a shattered piece of the star. Thus, exotic buildings could be seen at the bottom of the sea from time to time, but basically none of them were intact. Under the terrifying impact, how could they still be intact? However, this was a piece of a continent after all. There was a large amount of godly metal scattered in the sea, and the quality was relatively high. This also attracted many people to search here. If they could find a piece of high-level godly metal, they would be rich. If they could find a high-level god tool, then the value would be even more astonishing. Actually, it was not just godly metal and god tools. It was possible to find lost cultivation techniques, spirit medicine seeds, and so on here. It was said that people had even found high-level puppets here, and their battle prowess was astonishing. In short, this sea was a treasure trove. Precisely because of this, pirates were bred here, and they specialized in robbing these people who came to try their luck. When they reached the edge of the sea, Ling Han stopped the flying shuttle. This sea was very strange, and had a great restriction on flying god tools. It would produce an extremely strong gravity, causing flying god tools to sink to the bottom. It was as if this fallen piece of the star still had its own gravity, and was incredibly strong. Even ordinary ships could not sail here, and would sink at any moment. If one wanted to sail on this sea, they had to use the bones and skins of demonic beasts native to this sea to create a buoyancy that could resist the gravity. Because these demonic beasts had lived in this sea for countless years, their bodies had evolved, and they had become accustomed to this gravity. The pirates that Ling Han and Shui Yinyu wanted to eliminate were naturally in the sea, but they did not know which island their nest was on. This group of pirates was very careful, and had never exposed the location of their nest, making it very difficult to eliminate them. Fortunately, Ling Han and Shui Yinyu did not need to go deep alone, and they could eliminate this group of pirates with their own strength. Their plan was very simple. They would join a fleet, and when the pirates came to rob them, they would take the chance to attack. Anyway, their mission was to eliminate pirates, as long as there were enough of them. At the same time, we can also try our luck. Someone once found level 10 godly metal here, Shui Yinyu said. Ling Han had already heard Shui Yinyu introduce the situation of the Star Sea on the way here. He immediately nodded with a smile and said, "My luck has always been good." He was not boasting, because he came by opening the sky, and received the blessing of heaven, and his luck was indeed better than ordinary people. Don't underestimate things like luck. When he was still in the lower realm, Xinyuan Ziguang's luck was nature-defying. When he went out, he would trip over a spirit tool, and when he jumped off a cliff, he could obtain a supreme inheritance. Ling Han's luck wasn't as heaven-defying as Xinyuan Ziguang's, but he definitely belonged to the category of people who were enveloped by luck. Shui Yinyu nodded. She had done considerable research on small worlds, and knew that the masters of heaven creation would receive generous blessings from heaven and earth, including an increase in their power, a change in their physique, and an influx of fortune. "You should listen to me," she said as she put away the cloud-piercing shuttle. As Ling Han put away the cloud-piercing shuttle, he smiled and said, "A husband should be the wife's guide. You should have listened to me anyway." "Damn pervert." Shui Yinyu hummed. "I just added the word stinky. And you think it's something new?" Ling Han asked with a smile. "Let's go." Shui Yinyu took the lead. Their target was the Tyrant Axe Pier. Ships set sail here regularly. Of course, they had to pay a considerable fee. After all, they had the exclusive ships here. The pier was not far, and the two of them soon arrived. Because there were a lot of people going out to sea, this place was an important supply station. Thus, a small town had developed around this dock. There were inns, brothels, and casinos. The enjoyment here was not inferior to that of a big city like the imperial capital. But a town was a town. It was not more than 5 kilometers wide, and 3 sides were built with high walls. There were divine patterns on the walls, so the defense was obviously very strong. The other side was the sea. There were over a dozen ships of various sizes docked there. In the middle of the town, there was a flag with a bloody axe drawn on it. It was the symbol of this town. When Ling Han and Shui Yinyu arrived at the entrance of the town, they were immediately stopped. 1 true origin stone for each person. There were a total of 5 people on the other side, and they all crossed their arms over their chests. After sweeping their eyes over Ling Han and Shui Yinyu, they finally fixed their eyes on Shui Yinyu. They looked her up and down, and it was as if they wanted to strip her clean with their gazes. Ling Han moved slightly to block Shui Yinyu behind him, and said, "I've never heard that we have to pay to enter the Tyrant Axe Pier." "Now you've heard about it," a strong man in white said. "However, if the beauty behind you gives us a kiss, we only need to pay 1 true origin stone," another brawny man said with a smile, his face full of lust. "Hee, if you're willing to give me a kiss, I'm willing to pay 1 true origin stone." Ha 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 ha. The 5 people all laughed loudly. In the imperial capital, although there were descendants of nobles like Zhao Luan, Sha Yuan, and Luo Ba, who were very domineering in their conduct, they were, after all, under the feet of the emperor. No matter how overboard they were only at the level of profligate young masters. Here, however, the weak were prey to the strong, and the ugliness of human nature was magnified to the extreme. In the world of cultivators, the fist was king, and strength was venerated. "Young lady, you're really beautiful. I didn't think that there would be such a beauty in such a remote place. Come, give me a smile." A brawny man couldn't help but reach out to push Ling Han aside and tease Shui Yinyu. Ling Han's expression darkened. "Give me a smile" was his line, all right? Now, he actually had to share this famous line with a ruffian. Wasn't this lowering his status? He reached out and grabbed the brawny man's wrist and said, "You dare to tease even my wife, how dare you? Fuck, you actually dare to retaliate." The brawny man was stunned and suddenly struggled, only to find that his hand seemed to be clamped by iron pincers, and he couldn't move at all. His ferocious nature flared up, and his other hand instantly lashed out at Ling Han. "Humph!" Ling Han shook his hand and paw paw paw, the sound of bones breaking rang out. The brawny man's entire arm was like a noodle drooping limply. All the bones in his arm had already been shattered into pieces. Ah! The brawny man was stunned for a moment before he came to his senses, and suddenly screamed in pain. "How dare you, you actually dare to injure a member of our Black Five gang." The other 4 brawny men flew into a rage, and all drew their weapons, surrounding Ling Han and Shui Yinyu. Chapter 1004. Beauties were the most common resource on Joint Peace Planet. As long as one reached the mountain river tier, it was really too easy to marry a beauty. However, beauties were also divided into different levels. Different status would cause different changes in the attractiveness of beauties. How could the feeling of conquest be the same for a girl from a humble family and a princess of the imperial family? But for someone like Shui Yinyu, not only was she beautiful and moving, she also had a natural enchanting temperament. Every move she made was flirtatious, causing others to fall head over heels for her. Added with her immortal level cultivation, she naturally became the focus of everyone's attention. Such a seductive beauty, who wouldn't be moved? What a beautiful girl. That butt is round and perky, I really want to go up and touch it. Her breasts are also quite large. I probably can't even hold them with one hand. Many people were eating in the main hall, and some were already spewing obscenities. Ling Han's eyes turned cold, and he stared at one of them. "Brat, what?" It was a middle-aged man about 40 years old, with a sturdy figure and a fierce-looking face. However, he was actually wearing a bright red robe, appearing very out of place. He pointed at Ling Han and said, "Again, I'll beat you to death." "Ling Han." Shui Yinyu grabbed him, not wanting him to use force here. Ling Han shook his head, pulled her hand away, and then walked towards the middle-aged man. "Brat, are you angry because of a beauty?" The middle-aged man smirked and said, "Which clan spoiled brat are you from, allowing you to obtain such a beauty? Tiske, without such a clan are you worthy?" He was full of jealousy, and even his eyes were slightly red. He was in the high extreme of the mountain river tier, but didn't have Ling Han's luck with women at all. "You've lived so many years on a dog's body, speaking without any restraint. What's the use of having this mouth?" Ling Han strode over, his expression cold. Since he and Shui Yinyu were going to stay here for 2 days, if he didn't establish his dominance, these people would inevitably gossip and take advantage of Shui Yinyu. "What a picky mouth," sneered the middle-aged man. "Young man, I'll teach you a lesson today. Once you leave your family, you're nothing." The 2 of them drew their swords, ready to fight at any moment. However, the others were all laughing and joking at the side. This matter did not concern them, so naturally, no one would step forward. The innkeeper didn't stop them. His job was only to prevent outsiders from causing trouble. Since these 2 people wanted to fight, it didn't matter if they were beaten to death. Of course, if the middle-aged man or Ling Han asked for help, they would intervene and stop the battle. Ling Han had already walked over. He was angry, and his aura was released lightly. There was a type of intimidating might. This was because his divine sense was far stronger than that of ordinary cultivators at the medium extreme, and it had been tempered countless times by the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, so it was naturally like a god tool. "You're courting death." The middle-aged man immediately sent a slap towards Ling Han's head. Although he said that he wanted to teach Ling Han a lesson, his first move was to kill him. Anyone who believed his words would be too naive. Ling Han snorted and also swung out his palm to meet the middle-aged man's palm. Pa! The two palms collided with each other. Immediately, a loud sound rang out, and a ripple that could be seen with the naked eye burst forth from their palms, instantly knocking over a few nearby tables. Ah! The middle-aged man screamed in pain. He felt as if his palm had struck godly metal, shaking his hand to the point that the bones in his hand were about to crack. It was indescribably painful. He looked at Ling Han in shock. He couldn't believe that this young man who was only at the medium extreme actually possessed such great power. He was at the early stage of the high extreme. He took a step back, clenched his right hand into a fist, and swung it at Ling Han. Ling Han also clenched his fist, and their fists collided. Pung pung pung. Instantly, the middle-aged man's figure swayed, and he stumbled 7 steps back, crashing into the table behind him. Under the impact of his protective power, he directly turned into splinters of wood. He still didn't stop his retreat, but the person sitting on the other side stretched out a hand and pushed, finally stopping him. Hiss! He bared his teeth, raised his hand, and saw that his fist had actually caved in. Obviously, his bones had definitely been broken. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a wound. What the hell, how could there be such a physique? The middle-aged man was both shocked and furious. Cultivators were most afraid of close combat, and he was taking advantage of the fact that Ling Han's cultivation level was lower than his. He never thought that in 2 exchanges, he would suffer losses consecutively, causing him to be filled with regret. This brat should have cultivated his physique, which was why his defense was so terrifying. He was even more certain of Ling Han's identity. He must be the heir of some great clan, which was why he had so many resources to temper his physique. It should be known that the price needed to raise one's physique to the immortal level was astonishingly high. One had to bathe in precious godly medicine every day, day after day, and only after countless years could one achieve it. Otherwise, everyone knew that a strong physique was very beneficial, so why were there so few people who cultivated immortal bodies? It wasn't that they didn't want to, but that they couldn't do it at all. The middle-aged man was mad with jealousy. This young man's cultivation level was lower than his, yet he had the physique that he yearned for day and night. The woman that made his heart itch and want to pounce on her was all because of his background, and that he had a good clan. Die, he shouted loudly. Wang, a sound wave came from his mouth, and actually took on a human figure, waving a staff and swinging it at Ling Han's head. He had finally learned his lesson, and this strike would increase the distance between them before fighting it out with Ling Han. A sound wave-type martial arts technique. Ling Han was slightly surprised. This type of martial arts technique was very rare, and he had never thought that he would actually encounter it when he had just arrived here. But no matter what kind of martial arts technique it was, it ultimately depended on the strength of the user, so he was naturally unafraid. Xiao, he charged over, intending to directly attack the root of the problem. The human figure formed by the sound wave smashed down, but Ling Han only raised a hand and received the staff. Pong, his figure paused slightly, but the might of this staff was also dispersed by him. He lowered his arm and saw that his clothes had been torn, and there was also a faint mark left on his skin. After all, he was in the high extreme and could not be underestimated. He only sighed ruefully, but it caused the bystanders to be incredibly shocked. Hey, this brat is only in the medium extreme, yet is able to face Lu Qiwei, who is in the early stage of the high extreme, head-on, and even cause Lu Qiwei to suffer a small loss. This strength is really a bit shocking. At least a 1-star genius. His physique is even more shocking. He must be a disciple of a great clan, and has refined his body with various godly medicines since he was young. Their thoughts were more or less the same as the middle-aged man Lu Qiwei. They all firmly believed that Ling Han was a disciple of a great clan, and that was why he had such a strong physique. In fact, it was because of this that he had become a 1-star genius. Those who worked hard here were basically all lone cultivators, and did not have very good backgrounds. Instantly, they were filled with jealousy towards Ling Han. Chapter 1005. Die. As Lu Qiwei kept moving, he opened his mouth and roared repeatedly. Wave after wave of sound waves blasted out, and all of them took human form, striking at Ling Han with his staff. Pung 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 pung, one staff strike followed another. Though this couldn't cause any damage to Ling Han, it was an elite in the high extreme attacking after all, forcibly blocking Ling Han's advance and preventing him from getting close. Ha 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 ha, young man, your good birth only allows your foundation to surpass others, but battle still requires experience. Lu Qiwei laughed loudly. I've been fighting for 210,000 years, how can you compare to me? Ling Han couldn't help but be speechless. For someone who came from a small world, he was used to the limit of a normal person's lifespan. Even shattering void tier elites could only live for about 1,000 years. Even if he himself had already leaped into the medium extreme, he still didn't put himself in the same position. His limit of lifespan had already reached 200,000 years, and from this aspect, his relative age was really frighteningly young. He smiled faintly and said, "Is that so? I'll smash that pretty boy face of yours, and see if you can still show such a smile." Lu Qiwei took a deep breath and suddenly roared. Wang, this time the humanoid sound wave that appeared was more than 3 times larger, and also held a sharp sword. The sound wave person whistled over, and stabbed with the sword, directly stabbing at Ling Han's face. Ling Han humphed, stretched out his right hand and pressed down lightly. Wang, the divine patterns of gravity were activated, and this sound wave person's figure instantly fell, his movements completely distorted. Pung! The sound wave person's sword directly struck the ground, instantly cutting a large hole in the wooden floor. Dust filled the air, causing many people to wave their hands to block the invasion of the dust. However, there were also a few people who sat upright and did not move. The dust floated up, but was blocked by an endless barrier, unable to advance an inch. These people seemed ordinary, but if one looked closely, they would discover that a terrifying aura was hidden in their bodies. Once it exploded, it could easily crush any mountain river tier cultivator into dust. They were elites of the sun-moon tier. What? Lu Qiwei was shocked. That attack just now was his ultimate move, but it was actually dissolved by Ling Han with a raise of his hand. This was something he could not accept. Ling Han gave chase and punched out. Humph! Although Lu Qiwei was shocked, he wouldn't just wait helplessly for death. He hurriedly retreated while opening his mouth to spit out a sound wave attack. However, Ling Han had already made his move. What threat could these sound waves pose? As the divine runes of gravity were activated, the sound waves were compressed and even directly shattered. One had to realize that special Pearl Mountain river stones were precious treasures, and it was also extremely difficult to obtain them. How could their might be simple? Ling Han then used the divine runes of gravity to affect Lu Qiwei's movement technique, instantly closing the distance between the two of them. He then punched out heavily. Lu Qiwei stretched out a hand to parry, but under the influence of gravity, his move was a beat too slow. Ling Han's punch forcefully penetrated and landed heavily on his face. Suddenly, the muscles on his face rippled, and then split open with a paw. He was sent flying, and just as he was about to crash into a pillar, he saw someone leap over and grab him. Otherwise, if the pillar was broken, this building could possibly collapse. Everyone looked at Lu Qiwei, and couldn't help but be shocked. Half of his face had been forcefully destroyed, and one could clearly see the broken bones and rotten flesh. It was extremely bloody. Enough, if you continue fighting, someone will really die. The one who grabbed Lu Qiwei was an old man with a white beard. Just now, no one had noticed where he was at all, but he had suddenly appeared. He was an elite of the sun-moon tier, and at this moment his aura was completely revealed. There was a complete sun and moon behind him, showing that he was in existence at the peak stage of the low extreme. Elder Qian. Greetings, Elder Qian. Many people bowed respectfully. This old man's surname was Qian, and his name was Yi. He was a senior elder of the Great Chariot Gang. Though he looked benevolent, he was a famous killer. He was known for his cruel methods, and the number of people who had died at his hands was innumerable. Ling Han didn't follow up with another attack. He only wanted to establish his might, so that others wouldn't speak vulgarly of Shui Yanyu again. He nodded slightly at Qian Yi, then walked to the counter and said, "We want to stay in the inn. 1 room or 2 rooms?" The shopkeeper asked. 1 room. 2 rooms. The first sentence was said by Ling Han, But Shui Yinyu hurriedly corrected him. One room. Ling Han hugged Shui Yinyu, causing her delicate body to go limp. The retort that was about to come out of her mouth also turned into the whites of her eyes, electrifying her to the point of melting. The accommodation fee of this inn is 1 true origin stone per day. During your stay in the inn, your safety is guaranteed. Of course, if you want to fight with others, then that's another matter. Please pay 10 days rent in advance. If you don't stay for the full period, the balance will not be refunded. If you want to continue staying after 10 days, then you'll have to pay another 10, the shopkeeper said. So dark. This place would leave once every 3 days. Ordinary people would only stay for 2 or 3 days, but he had to pay the rent every 10 days and there was no refund. Ling Han fished out 10 true origin stones and handed them over. This was small money to him and he really didn't care. Sir, this lowly one will lead the way for you, a waiter said from the side. He led Ling Han and Shui Yinyu up the stairs. There were a total of 5 floors and they came to the 4th floor. The room was definitely not very luxurious or elegant, but the purpose of staying in an inn was for safety. Staying here was equivalent to having the protection of the Great Chariot Gang. Unless the Yang clan asked for them, this place was absolutely safe. Do the two of you plan to rest for a while, or go downstairs to eat? The waiter asked. Rest. All right, then this lowly one will not disturb the two of you. The waiter retreated and closed the door. Suddenly, there were only the two of them left in the room. Shui Yinyu saw Ling Han lean over, and hurriedly put on a wary expression saying, Don't do anything rash. Ling Han laughed and said, Puffed, what is your head full of? He switched to using his divine sense and said, Don't you know that I have a spatial god tool? I'll bring you in to see it now. Shui Yinyu instantly looked tempted. Spatial god tool. A god tool that only existed in legends. Even the Empress couldn't possibly possess it. Don't resist my divine sense, Ling Han said. Shui Yinyu had just nodded, yet unexpectedly, Ling Han kissed her, causing her to release a moan. She hurriedly stretched out her hands to push him away, but her hands became weaker and weaker, and she was completely immersed in Ling Han's passionate kiss. Being kissed so flustered that her mind was naturally distracted, and she was easily drawn into the Black Tower by Ling Han. She was still unaware, and it was only when Ling Han released her mouth that she came back to her senses after a long while. She said in annoyance, Damn pervert, you're acting shameless again. She hadn't even said the word shameless when she gaped and was tongue-tied, stunned by the scene before her eyes. Chapter 1006. This was a vast and boundless world. There were large fields of medicine, green mountains and clear waters, spiritual birds and cranes, and celestial mist lingering. It was like a paradise in the mortal world. Shui Yinyu received a huge shock. She had never seen a spatial god tool before. Were they all so big? This was already not something that could be described with the word space, but rather a whole world. Ling Han smiled faintly and asked, Are you satisfied with this place? Shui Yinyu nodded repeatedly, her pretty face filled with pleasant surprise. But she was immediately shocked and asked, Then if we all enter here, will the spatial god tool be discovered by others? No. Ling Han smiled and shook his head. I call this the Black Tower because its outer appearance is a 9-story black tower, but only I can reach it because it is too small, like a mustard seed. Thus, even if I also enter, no one can possibly discover this thing that is even smaller than a speck of dust. Shui Yinyu believed this because she had seen Ling Han suddenly disappear before, and no matter how she searched, she could not find him. Then with this treasure, won't we be in an invincible position? She asked in pleasant surprise. Wife is right. Ling Han hugged her without reservation. Just now, he really did not enjoy kissing her to his heart's content. Damn pervert. Shui Yinyu murmured softly, but did not struggle too strongly. Seeing such a precious treasure, her heart was also surging, and there was a kind of passion rippling in her. The two of them were entangled, and only stopped when they were about to go off the rails. I'll take you to something good. Ling Han led Shui Yinyu to the place where the reincarnation tree was planted. Shui Yinyu's eyes widened. Is it this empty space? No. Not long after, a reincarnation tree will grow here. Ling Han said proudly. Shui Yinyu faltered and said, "It's the reincarnation seed that you obtained at the auction previously. But don't you know it needs 12 trillion years to truly grow?" "Hehe, don't worry, it definitely won't wait until your teeth all fall out." Ling Han laughed heartily and pinched her pretty face. "In 3 years at most, the reincarnation tree will be able to display its miraculous effects. At that time, if you cultivate here, one day will be equivalent to a lifetime." Shui Yinyu was a little doubtful. After all, it had said that it would take 12 trillion years for it to grow, but the problem was, did it have a spatial god tool? Since they even had such a divine weapon, it was not impossible for them to have some unimaginable abilities. She chose to believe in Ling Han. "As expected, you are a person with great fortune," Shui Yinyu said with a nod. "Being able to split open the sky and come here, how could he be an ordinary person?" Ling Han chuckled and said, "Of course. Otherwise, why would there be a beautiful enchantress like you throwing herself into my arms?" Shui Yinyu was still a little shy, and was not used to being teased by Ling Han. Her pretty face was red as she asked, Who threw herself into my arms?" Her almond-shaped eyes were like water, and they were so gentle and charming that they could melt anyone's heart. "You damn pervert." She recalled the past when Ling Han had peeped on her when she was bathing, and couldn't help but be annoyed. She raised her fist and swung it at Ling Han. How could this little bit of strength be taken seriously by Ling Han? With a pounce, he pounced on this enchanting enchantress. The two of them rolled on the grass, and very soon they were kissing again. The night passed, and early the next morning, Ling Han and Shui Yinyu went downstairs to eat breakfast. Though she hadn't really done it with Ling Han last night, the two of them had slept in each other's arms, so intimate that they were no different from husband and wife. Tyrant Axpier was a small place after all, so how could they send out Sun Moon tier elites for a random fight? If they really did send out such elites, it meant that they were serious and wanted to fight to the death. Obviously, the 5 great forces would definitely not take this step. Otherwise, if they fought to the death, or if they won a Pyrrhic victory, it would only benefit others. The remaining 3 gangs would definitely join forces to suppress them and divide the profits. The people of the Black 5 gang stopped at the entrance of the inn because the people of the Great Chariot gang had already gone out to meet them, not allowing them to take another step in. What are the bastards of the Black 5 gang doing here? Get lost. Get lost, or I'll beat you up. The people of the Great Chariot gang took the initiative to provoke them, because the other party was bullying into their territory. In the Black 5 gang, the crowd parted and a young man walked out. He was not dressed in black, but rather in a flashy embroidered robe like a colorful butterfly. His appearance was not bad, though. His skin was soft and tender, his lips red and his teeth white. He was even holding a folding fan in his hand. This young man opened the folding fan, waved it lightly and said, "Yesterday, someone beat up a disciple of my Black 5 gang. Today I have specially come to find this person. Unrelated people, get lost." Chapter 1008. Ling Han wasn't avoiding Jiang Anyun, so he didn't set sail. Every 3 days, a ship would set sail from the Tyrant Axe Pier. However, there were differences in the size of the ship. For example, the ship this time was a large ship. Not only could it accommodate more people, but it was also equipped with powerful guards. There were elites at the low extreme of the Sun Moon tier overseeing it, so it was the safest. However, the problem was that Ling Han and Shui Yinyu were here to exterminate the pirates. The stronger the elites on the ship, the lower the chances of being robbed by the pirates. That naturally wouldn't do. Thus, they had to wait for a small ship that only had elites at the consummate level of the Mountain River tier overseeing it. That way, the chances of them attracting pirates would be much higher. 3 days later, it was still a large ship. After another 3 days, a small ship would set sail. After learning the specific situation, Ling Han and Shui Yinyu began to cultivate in the Black Tower. Shui Yinyu cultivated her martial arts techniques, while Ling Han studied the pill recipes he had just obtained. Although there were only 4 of them, they were level 1 to level 4 divine pills. They were perfect for progressing step by step. Previously, Ling Han had either been traveling or cultivating, so he hadn't had the time to study pill recipes. He was the alchemy emperor, and even in the small world in his last life, he had concocted demigod pills. He wasn't far from becoming a divine-grade alchemist. There are two most important aspects in alchemy. The first is to control the fire, and the second is to extract the divine patterns from the medicinal ingredients and interweave them. These two aspects in the end are all about control and the use of one's divine sense. After consuming the reincarnation tea, my divine sense is already far stronger than ordinary cultivators at the medium extreme. In fact, it can even rival the consummate level. After being tempered by the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, the toughness of my divine sense is unparalleled among those at the same cultivation level. In other words, in terms of innate conditions, I'm far superior to others. In terms of alchemy techniques, there's no difference between divine-grade and ordinary spirit medicines. It's just the extreme temperature of the flames and the interweaving of the divine patterns that far surpass heaven-grade spirit medicines. Then let's begin. He began to try to concoct the heavenly chi pill. This was a level 1 godly medicine that could speed up the accumulation of origin power at the mountain river tier. There were many divine pills with such effects, but the heavenly chi pill was definitely one of the best. It should be known that every medicine was 30% poisonous, and no medicinal pill could be eaten as a meal. Thus, if one could only eat 10 medicinal pills in a month, then the better the effect, the more precious it would be. Failure, failure, failure. After all, it was a divine pill. Ling Han felt like he had become a beginner in alchemy, and his cauldrons kept exploding. However, he was not discouraged at all because after every failure he made obvious progress. Unfortunately, another 6 days passed. When they could go out to sea, Ling Han still did not succeed. After a dozen more times, I think I should be able to succeed. Ling Han and Shui Yinyu exited the Black Tower and headed towards the pier. Not long after they arrived, they saw people coming one after another, and some of them knew each other. There was naturally no need to mention Jiang Anyun. He led 10 mountain river tier subordinates, and his shifty eyes were staring at Shui Yinyu as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. Shui Yinyu whispered into his ear, "Those are members of the Luo clan, Luo Yu, Luo Wu, and Luo Sinyun. Luo Sinyun is an elite of the Sun Moon tier, and he should have broken through over 30,000 years ago. It's extremely likely that he's reached the peak stage of the low extreme now." She pointed in another direction and said to Ling Han, "And over there, there's Wuxiao and Fan Yong, the other two followers of Zhao Luan. They've reached the high extreme of the mountain river tier a long time ago, and should have reached the peak stage." Ling Han nodded. He had arrived with 4 beautiful women in martial arts attire. Weren't they Lu Ying and the other 4 guards under Sha Yuan? These 4 women were all at the consummate level of the mountain river tier, so they could not be underestimated. Apart from them, there was also a youth dressed in coarse sackcloth. He looked to be only 17 or 18 years old, yet shockingly had reached the immortal level. However, his specific cultivation level could not be seen. This youth's gaze was like that of a tiger, and when he stared at others, it would strike fear into their hearts. There was also a woman in white who looked like a goddess. Her skin was as white as jade, and her lips were as red as if they had been dyed. Her long hair was tied into a large braid that was coiled around her neck. Her expression was cold, and she was like an icy mountain, making others not dare to approach her. There was a youth hugging a sword, and no matter where he went, he would hold the hilt tightly in his arms, as if he was unwilling to let go for even a moment. The last one was a man in gray. He had an ordinary appearance, and if he was thrown into a crowd, he would definitely not be given a second glance. Ling Han had the cloud-piercing shuttle, so his speed was the fastest. However, the Luo clan, Sha clan, and Zhao clan naturally could easily find out his destination. Thus they finally arrived after spending some time. On the ship, a sailor called out loudly, "We'll set off in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. Those who board the ship, hurry up. Everyone pay 10 true origin stones." The youth in coarse sackcloth was the first to board the ship, followed by the woman in white, and then the sword-hugging youth. However, after that no one else moved. Ling Han couldn't help but smile. Come, the remaining people were all here for him. If he did not board the ship, then naturally no one else would board the ship. Come. He and Shui Yinyu walked onto the deck, paid 20 true origin stones, and stood at the bow of the ship. Instantly, the members of the Luo clan, Sha clan and Zhao clan all moved, all paying true origin stones to board the ship. The sailor stopped Luo Sunyun of the Luo clan and said, "Wait, you're at the Sun Moon tier, so you can't board the ship?" "Why can't I board the ship?" Luo Sunyun asked in displeasure. A mere mountain river tier cultivator dared to stop him? He released his aura lightly and instantly caused the sailor to tremble in fear. Sir, if you want to show off, please go somewhere else. This is Tyrant Axe Pier." An elder in embroidered robes appeared like a ghost, a sun and moon hovering behind him. "This is the rule of the Yang clan. Small ships can only carry mountain river tier cultivators. This is also for everyone's safety, lest we be ambushed by our peers when we set sail." A small ship was guarded by an elite at the consummate level of the mountain river tier. If a sun moon tier cultivator boarded the ship, then who would be able to suppress who? Luo Sunyun stared at him for a long time, yet he only humphed. He leaned over to whisper a few words to Luo Yu and Luo Wu, and then retreated to the pier. Even a powerful dragon couldn't suppress a snake in its den. Moreover, compared to the Yang clan, he couldn't be considered a powerful dragon. He stared at Ling Han, undisguised killing intent in his eyes. Even if he couldn't board the ship, so what? Luo Yu and Luo Wu were both at the consummate level of the mountain river tier, and Luo Yu had even reached the peak stage of the consummate level. He could definitely suppress Ling Han with a single hand. After enough time passed for an incense stick to burn, the ship set sail and sailed out into the boundless sea. This was a small ship, so it indeed wasn't big. It was only 30 meters long and 15 meters tall. There were a total of 3 levels, with the passengers living on the top level and the crew living on the bottom level. The middle level was an armory, and there were cannons installed. These cannons could be powered by true origin stones, and they could unleash terrifying attacks. However, they normally wouldn't fire the cannons because firing one cannon would burn one or even several true origin stones. The price was too high. The power source of this ship was also true origin stones, and there was a formation set up on the hull of the ship. When it couldn't borrow the power of the wind, it could use true origin stones to activate the formation and sail. When the pier disappeared from view, many pairs of eyes were fixed on Ling Han. Chapter 1009. Ha 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 ha, brat, in the end you still couldn't resist going out to sea. Jiang Anyun laughed loudly. In his opinion, as long as he left the sea, that delicate and seductive beauty would be his. Ling Han ignored him. This was just a clown. Take him down. Jiang Anyun was a little enraged. He was the young master of the Black Five gang. Impudent. A large man appeared. He was extremely muscular and he was actually 3 meters tall. His muscles were bulging, and they were pitch black, as if they had been forged from cold iron. Cold light was clearly reflected off them. Who are you? How dare you act so arrogantly in front of me? Jiang Anyun was displeased. Was his title as the young master of the Black Five gang just for nothing? So many people didn't give him any face? Young gang leader. An elder hurriedly tugged at him and said in a low voice, "This is Yang Taichung of the Yang clan, an elite at the consummate level of the mountain river tier. It is said that he has cultivated a mystical technique, and his physique is as tough as godly metal, making it difficult for sharp weapons to injure him. He is highly valued by the Yang clan." Jiang Anyun instantly lost his temper. It was true that he was the young master of the Black Five gang, but how could the Black Five gang compare to the Yang clan? "Since you're on my ship, you'd better behave yourself." Yang Taichung swept his gaze over every single person on the bow of the ship. How experienced was he? How could he not tell that many people had come for that young man and woman? Once you disembark, you can settle your grudges among yourselves. But if anyone dares to harm anyone on the ship, then don't blame me for being impolite, he said darkly, releasing his aura without holding back. "Brother Yang, right? My hands are a bit itchy. How about we exchange a few blows?" Luo Yu stepped forward with a smile on his face. "All right," Yang Taichung agreed decisively. If he didn't subdue these people, who knew what kind of demon would be stirred up behind his back? Luo Yu took a few steps forward and stretched out a hand to press down on Yang Taichung. Bang bang bang, Yang Taichung made his move. The two of them fought speed with speed, and in an instant they had exchanged over 10 blows. Luo Yu let out a muffled groan and retreated a few steps. His face was shockingly pale. "Thank you for letting me win," Yang Taiching said calmly with clasped fists. After a while, Luo Yu recovered and said in a hoarse voice, "Brother Yang is truly fierce. This one is not his opponent. Once an elite made a move, it would be clear whether there was one or not." Yang Taiching's powerful display of strength instantly caused the hearts of all the people on the ship to tremble, not daring to underestimate him in the slightest. Originally, the members of the Luo clan had all thought that they were from the imperial capital, and thus looked down on these poor and remote natives. However, Yang Taiching's strength was like a solid slap to their faces. This person should be a 2-star genius. With a cultivation base at the peak of the great perfection realm and a 2-star genius, he should be the undisputed #1 expert on this ship. "Come, we won't be able to kill Ling Han on the ship." Wait! These people had all made up their minds. Their faces were full of smiles, and their expressions did not change in the slightest. I'll say it again. No matter who it is, no one is allowed to make a move against a guest on the ship. Otherwise, if you kill someone, I'll kill you, Yang Taiching said in a sinister voice. Humph! The others all remained silent. Only Jiang Anyun showed his displeasure on his face. This also showed that this person was an idiot. He had already reached the mountain river tier, yet did not have the slightest bit of shrewdness. He was already used to doing what he wanted and snatching what he wanted. However, he had managed to concoct 5 pills on his second cauldron, 7 pills on his third cauldron, and a perfect 10 pills on his 10th cauldron. As far as he was concerned, this was very normal. As the alchemy emperor, he was only lacking in ingredients and cultivation, which was why he hadn't been able to concoct the godly pill. Now that all the conditions had been met, success would naturally follow naturally. However, Shui Yinyu was terrified. Is this man a monster? Not only is he so proficient in martial art, but he's also so astonishingly talented in alchemy as well. How terrifying! However, she was extremely happy. This was because the heavenly chi pill was exactly the spirit medicine that she needed right now. It could help her cultivation level rise rapidly. After using up all of the ingredients, Ling Han began to study the second pill recipe. Heavenly Pearl Pill. This was a level 2 godly pill. Its effect was to simultaneously increase a cultivator's origin power and physical strength. It could also slightly strengthen one's physique. In the immortal realm, there were many people who cultivated body techniques. However, there were very few who could achieve great accomplishment. Moreover, improving one's physique was a long-standing problem. Very few people could raise their physique to the immortal level. Thus, this required far too many resources. Thus, the Heavenly Pearl Pill was extremely expensive. One pill could be sold for 300 true origin stones. Moreover, it was often difficult to find one in the market. At the current stage, this was the pill that was most useful to Ling Han. He was extremely motivated. After thoroughly studying the pill recipe, he began to burn money. So what? The fog blocks divine sense and vision. As long as you move fast enough, who would know it was you who did it? Jiang Anyun said. Then he added, you definitely can't hurt that woman. Otherwise, I will throw you all into the sea to be buried with her. Yes, young gang leader. A total of 8 people from the Black 5 gang boarded the ship, and the remaining 7 could only obediently accept his orders. Jiang Ji was busy cultivating all day, and he still had to rely on Jiang Anyun to carry on the family line. Thus, even if Jiang Ji knew about this matter, it was likely that he would support it. On the other side, Zhou Xiao and Fan Yong were also whispering to each other, discussing how they should make their move later. Meanwhile, the 2 members of the Luo clan were similarly restless. Their 4 eyes were fixed on Ling Han, their killing intent boiling. Lu Ying and the other death guards also wore cold expressions, their killing intent surging. Meanwhile, the eyes of the middle-aged man in gray flickered, and his gaze wavered. Meanwhile, the sword-hugging young man, the coarse-clothed young man, and the white-robed woman stood beside Yang Taichung. It was as if they had also sensed that there would be a turbulent wave, and they didn't want to be caught up in it. It was in this kind of atmosphere that the ship slowly sailed into the fog. Instantly, everyone felt as if they had become blind. Their eyes were wide open, yet they couldn't even see the scenery in front of them. Only when they placed their hands in front of their eyes could they feel a faint blur. Their divine sense was even worse. Once it was released, it was as if it had been swallowed by something. It was completely useless. Thankfully, they still had their hearing. Otherwise, if they lost sight, hearing, and divine sense, the three most important senses, at the same time, it was likely that many people would go crazy. On the ship, there was complete silence. But this was only a matter of an instant. Pung 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 pung. Immediately, the sounds of battle were heard. The turbulent waves of power were unable to sweep away the fog here in the slightest. Thankfully, this ship was specially made, and could even resist the frightening gravity. Naturally, it was also incredibly sturdy. At least, it would be very difficult for mountain river tier cultivators to damage it. Stop, stop! Yang Taichung roared continuously in fury. He charged into the battle, and no matter who he encountered, he would grab them and throw them out. Pung pung pung. They continuously crashed into the pillars and cabins of the ship. The other crew members also joined in the battle, trying to stop the chaotic battle. But this only made the battle even more chaotic. In the fog, no one was clear, and they could only move based on their instincts. After about 30 minutes, a ray of sunlight suddenly shone over, and the fog began to dissipate. The battle instantly stopped, and when the sky that had not been seen for a long time reappeared, everyone could be seen standing obediently in their original positions. It was as if they had all been civilized people just then, and no one had made a move. However, if one looked closely, they would discover that some people had been punched in the face, and their eye sockets were all black. Some had disheveled hair, and some even had their clothes ripped apart. All of them were in an extremely sorry state. Young gang leader. A cry of surprise traveled over. Everyone turned around, and saw that Jiang Anyun was lying on the ground with his back facing the sky. There was a bloody hole in his chest, and it had coincidentally pierced through his heart. He was already dead. His face was filled with astonishment. It was as if he had not imagined that he would actually be attacked, and even killed with a single blow. It's you. It's definitely you. The elder from the Black Five gang pointed at Ling Han, his face filled with killing intent. Cell phones read more easily. The bow of the ship slowly sailed into the black fog, and when the last ray of light disappeared, a great battle suddenly erupted. Ding 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 pung pung pung. Everyone attacked without any reservations. Saber light and sword shadows surged and power surged. Yang Taichung roared again and again. He turned into a wall, wanting to block all the people that were charging over. He was at the consummate level of the mountain river tier, and had even reached the peak stage, so there was no more room for improvement unless he advanced to the sun-moon tier. After a few thousand years of tempering, his battle prowess had become incredibly fierce and domineering. When he punched out with his iron fists, their might was not the slightest bit weaker than the impact of godly metal of the same level. Furthermore, he was a 2-star genius, so his battle prowess was truly frightening. But the problem was that there were really too many people that were attacking him, and none of them had any intention of fighting to the death with him. They only wanted to charge past this wall that he was. As such, the difficulty for him naturally increased. It was impossible for him to block every single one of them. Ah! A sailor screamed in agony, and fell to the ground, groaning. You dare! Yang Taichung was furious. His 3-meter-tall body exuded a black metallic luster. He was finally serious and unleashed a powerful move. Chapter 10:13. Just as the chaotic battle raged, the ship once again sailed out of the fog. Instantly the battle stopped. Black light danced all over Yang Taichung's body, making him look like a demon god from the depths of hell, exuding a terrifying aura. His gaze swept over, and he saw that the crew members that had formed a circle were already swaying left and right, all moaning in pain. Thankfully, they were only slightly wounded. He relaxed slightly, but killing intent immediately appeared on his face. 2 people fell on their backs, blood gushing out of their chests, forming a pool of blood below them. The mysterious killer from before appeared again. Obviously, the killer's target was also Ling Han. After dealing with the two targets that were blocking the way, he headed straight for her. Everyone was dumbfounded. They saw that Ling Han was sitting in his original position, and Shui Yinyu was standing beside him. Both of them were extremely calm, and there was no trace of battle on their bodies. This was too inconceivable. One had to realize that each of them had left some traces in the chaotic battle. But why didn't the target, Ling Han, have the slightest trace of battle? Moreover, Ling Han's hands and feet were still shackled, which made them speechless. Then, can you open the shackles now? Ling Han asked smilingly. This thing could only seal his power, but had no effect on divine sense, so he could naturally enter the Black Tower calmly and listen to another good show. Yang Tietching's expression was livid. He first released the shackles on Ling Han, and then went to the two crew members that had been killed. He did not speak for a long time. No matter who did it, I will definitely drag him out and tear him to pieces, he said word by word, his gaze sweeping over everyone, filled with cold killing intent. Now, aside from Ling Han, everyone was a suspect. Report, the crew member in charge of the lookout shouted from the top of the mast. Enemy sighted. Enemy sighted. Pirates are charging over. Pirates. Ling Han was slightly surprised. He had been hoping for pirates to appear a few days ago, and had not thought that at this critical juncture, there would actually really be pirates coming. Prepare for battle, Yang Taiching said coldly. He clearly knew that the person who had killed his underling was on his ship, but because he didn't know who it was, he could do nothing about it. This made him very angry. Now that the pirates are coming, it just gives him a chance to vent his anger. 12 small boats appeared in front of them. They were really small, and each boat only had 5 people on it. They were already full and there was no extra space. The people on the boat were all rowing at lightning speed like arrows. They were clearly 5 miles away, but in the blink of an eye, the distance had shortened to less than 2 miles. At such a close distance, the people on the ship could clearly see that all of their faces were filled with malevolence and cruelty. Fire, Yang Taichung ordered. Yes. Bang. 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 The cannons were fired, but the pirates were obviously used to this kind of scene. They did not panic at all and drove their small boats to avoid the cannons. Wanting to directly avoid a cannon strike was nearly impossible. After all, the muzzle of the cannon shot out a beam of light. It was a destructive beam formed by a complex array formation that extracted the power of true essence stones. However, before firing the cannons, one had to aim at the target, and those small boats did not move in a straight line at all. They twisted like agile snakes, and completely avoided the cannon strike. Yang Taiching did not panic, and continued to order, prepare for battle. Ha 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 ha. One pirate after another flipped over the edge of the boat, laughing strangely. This was a kind of psychological warfare, frightening the enemy and causing the enemy's morale to plummet. This is a good business trip. There are actually so many hot girls. Beautiful girls at the mountain river tier. All of them can be sold for a high price. Same rules. Kill all the men and take the women away. Okay. Very soon, all 60 pirates boarded the ship, and the real battle erupted. Although they had been scuttling around in the fog, and a few secret battles had broken out, and many people had died, they only had one target at that time, Ling Han. The 8 people from the Black 5 gang and 2 crew members had actually just suffered an undeserved calamity. But it was different now. Pirates would not be benevolent with you. If you did not offend them, they would not come to kill you. In the eyes of pirates, women were property, and men were enemies that had to be eliminated. Kill. Everyone was aware that they definitely could not fight amongst themselves at this time. Otherwise, they would all become sacrifices under the butcher knives of the pirates. Even if the beautiful girls would not die in a short time, they were sure that their ending would be even more tragic than death. Wife, let's compete and see who can kill more pirates. Ling Han laughed loudly, and charged out with his sword. Let's compete. Shui Yinyu also had a personality that refused to admit defeat, and was not to be outdone. If I win, I'll hug you to sleep at night. If you win, I'll let you hug me to sleep, Ling Han said with a low chuckle. Damn pervert. Shui Yinyu spat, her sword rising and falling, slashing continuously. You two are quite lovey-dovey. However, this brat is dead for sure. Beautiful girl, you don't have to worry. There will be many people who will become your men later. And I guarantee that they will feed you until you are full. A pirate charged over, brandishing his saber. Ling Han humped and shot out a 7-kill subduing soul technique, directly causing that pirate to enter a dazed state. Shui Yinyu followed up with a sword strike, piercing through that person's heart. In the next instant, this person's corpse had already been sucked into Ling Han's spatial spirit tool. If he did not bring his corpse back to the academy, how could he prove that he had completed the mission? Things like spatial spirit tools were really too common in the immortal realm, and it was not strange for everyone to have a dozen of them. Another pirate charged over from the adulterous couple. This person was much more powerful, and his cultivation level had reached the high extreme. As his saber slashed over, black light flashed, and an ear-piercing sound rang out, almost causing one's ears to bleed. Ling Han shot out the 7-kill subduing soul technique, but it only caused the other to pause slightly. Shui Yinyu's sword strike did not succeed, and was blocked by the other's saber. If Ling Han used the Black Tower, then he would naturally be able to suck that pirate in, but if a living person disappeared into thin air, then it would cause a commotion. However, Ling Han clearly knew that although everyone was engaged in a fierce battle, there were still many gazes fixed on him. He humphed, and his sword and palm danced together, activating the mysterious 3000 in earth overturning seal at the same time. A mere early stage of the medium extreme, and you think you're worthy of fighting me? That pirate laughed loudly, and brandished his saber, slashing at Ling Han's waist. With a thought from Ling Han, the divine patterns of gravity were activated. That pirate instantly exclaimed in surprise, and only felt that the saber in his hand had suddenly become a dozen times heavier, almost falling out of his hand. He hurriedly tightened his grip, but it was inevitable that this saber strike had greatly missed its target. He couldn't help but be stunned. What kind of secret technique was this? It was actually so powerful. One had to realize that he was in the middle stage of the high extreme, and was more than a minor level higher than Ling Han. In terms of power, he had an absolute advantage, so how could he still be affected? Ling Han had already charged over, and his sword and palm struck out together. Chapter 10:14. You're courting death, the pirate sneered. In a battle between cultivators, close-quarters combat was the most taboo. The prerequisite was that one was facing an elite or an opponent of equal strength. Not to mention against an elite, charging into close-quarters combat was simply courting death. If their strength was equal, close-quarters combat was incredibly dangerous, and victory or even death could be decided at any moment. However, on the other hand, if one was superior in strength, close-quarters combat was definitely the fastest way to end the battle. This brat's cultivation level was far inferior to his, so charging forward would be equivalent to courting death. Could it be that any random opponent he encountered was a 5-star genius? Even if it was a 5-star genius, their strength would at most be on par with his. The pirate brandished his saber and attacked, wanting to finish off his opponent in the shortest time possible. I'll send you on your way in 10 moves, Ling Han said with a smile. Pooh! The pirate almost spluttered. This should have been his line. A mere cultivator in the early stage of the medium extreme actually dared to boast that he would finish him off in 10 moves? Where did this courage come from? Brat, die! He brandished his saber even more urgently, and divine patterns appeared on the blade as if they had come to life. This wasn't because his saber was a god tool, but rather because his martial art intent had filled the blade during the battle, and this was the result of this transformation. It was equivalent to turning the saber into a part of his body. Thus, although it didn't have the might of a god tool, it was still no small matter. Wang, the saber exuded a black radiance, and its destructive power was astonishing. The light shot out and slashed the deck, leaving a deep mark. Ling Han's figure leaped, and the divine patterns of gravity continuously affected the pirate. Added with the impact of the 7-kill subduing soul technique, the pirate couldn't even use half of his full battle prowess. Defeating an opponent didn't necessarily require one's battle prowess to surpass the opponent's. Weakening the opponent's strength could also achieve one's goal. They exchanged blows, and in an instant they had already exchanged 9 moves. The pirate no longer dared to underestimate Ling Han, But saying that he wanted to finish him off in 10 moves was really a joke. I still have one more move. You want to kill me? Aren't you dreaming? Ling Han suddenly charged forward, looking like he wanted to perish together with the pirate. The pirate was startled at first, but then he sneered. He was confident that he could kill Ling Han first. Then, as long as Ling Han died, the effects he had received would completely disappear, and he would recover his full battle prowess. At this time, even if Ling Han's attack came again, would it be able to harm him? What an idiot! Did he think he was invincible just because he could affect me? He swung his saber and chopped down at Ling Han's head. Unfortunately, the people in the imperial capital were not here. Otherwise, there would definitely be people who would kindly advise him not to underestimate Ling Han's physique. Otherwise, he would be seeking his own death. Boom! The saber slashed down, and sure enough, it struck Ling Han's head first. However, what was shocking was that, the saber trembled and actually bounced back. Puff the pirate's eyes almost popped out. This scene was really beyond his expectations. Only now did he understand why Ling Han had the confidence to do so. His physique was simply inhuman. Oh no! He immediately exclaimed in his mind, but it was already too late to change his move now. In the first place, he had planned to kill Ling Han first. Then, the power of the latter's dying counterattack would definitely be greatly reduced, and there would be no danger to him at all. But now? He felt a pain in his chest, and then all the power in his body rapidly faded. 10th move. Ling Han's voice sounded in his ears, but it was so far away that it seemed like it was on the horizon. Before he could finish his thought, he had already lost all consciousness. Ling Han drew his sword back. The divine blade was not stained with blood, and was as bright as a mirror. He put the corpse of this pirate into his spatial spirit tool, and then charged towards where Shui Yinyu was, helping her defeat the enemy. The two of them were already well coordinated. One used the 7-kill subduing soul technique to paralyze the enemy, and the other took advantage of the opportunity to harvest. As long as their cultivation level was below the high extreme, they would be able to kill them with a single move. However, there were only 60 pirates, and after they joined forces and killed a dozen or so, there were naturally many pirates who targeted them. Xiao, another powerful pirate, leaped out, the image of 4 mountains and rivers impressively behind him. Consummate level? Thankfully, the 4th river had just formed and was obviously a size smaller. It should only be the late stage of the consummate level, and not the peak stage. Even so, this kind of strength was still enough to crush Ling Han and Shui Yinyu. Even Ling Han was 10 subminor levels weaker than the other party. Unless he was a 10-star genius, there was no way he could make up for this kind of gap. But 5-star geniuses were already legendary, so where would a 10-star genius come from? Humph! Die! The pirate attacked. He was a bald man with a shiny head, and as soon as he attacked, he threw out a string of beads. But upon closer inspection, each of the beads was actually a human head, just that they were many times smaller. Ling Han could be sure that these skulls belonged to humans, and at least mountain river tier beings. They had been tempered by the other party using a secret technique, and that was why they had become so small. As the string of beads waved, the skulls lit up. Pooh! They actually spat out bursts of black chi, which turned into black swords that slashed towards Ling Han. So fast. Ling Han only had time to shield his face with his arms, and these swords had already reached him. Pooh! Pew! 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 They all pierced through his clothes and flesh, and nailed into his body. Thankfully, Ling Han's godly bones were extremely tough, and didn't break in a single strike. The consummate level was the consummate level, after all, really too terrifying. Ling Han sighed ruefully, but didn't know that the Baldy was even more shocked. He was a whole 10 subminor levels higher than Ling Han, and theoretically he could kill Ling Han with a single strike. However, he had actually only caused some light injuries, which was really unacceptable. Humph! With the thought, Ling Han activated the divine patterns of flame, and the swords nailed into his arm were instantly refined into dust. He channeled the indestructible heaven scroll, and the wound instantly healed. The Baldy was dumbfounded, and 10,000 curses galloped through his mind. This kind of physique, this kind of recovery ability, if it could be maintained indefinitely, then unless he insta-killed Ling Han, who could outlast him? Damn it, how could there be such a freak? The Baldy took a deep breath. He definitely had to get serious. He had to unleash a powerful move and kill Ling Han with a single strike, or at least severely injure him. Otherwise, he would be able to easily recover, and there would be no way to kill him. He fiddled with the string of beads and said, "My Buddha is merciful. Help all living beings cross the sea of bitterness." There was actually a ring of golden light emitting from his body, looking incredibly divine. He was obviously a murderous demon, but he actually had such a dignified appearance. "Foolish commoner, I'll be the one to redeem you," Baldy shouted and tossed the string of beads into the air. The string of beads immediately grew in size, and each head was the size of a normal human head. A quick count revealed that there were exactly 360 heads. Eternal Heaven Cycle Formation, kill. Every head spat out a black light that shot towards Ling Han. Reading on a phone was even more refreshing. Chapter 10:16. So what if you know? You still have to die. Zhou Gaoyang sneered and slashed back with his sword. Ling Han shook his head and said, "Brother, you really shouldn't have dragged innocent people into this." "Oh, could it be that you want to stand up for them?" Zhou Gaoyang slashed again and again, each strike sharp and shone with a frightening divine light. His sword techniques were extremely simple and were aimed at Ling Han's vitals, abandoning all finesse. Ling Han smiled calmly and said, "I don't have that much free time, but someone has long wanted to smash you into pieces." "Oh, who is it?" Zhou Gaoyang said, but his sword did not slow down at all. "It's me." With a cold snort, Yang Tieching's figure appeared. His 3-meter-tall body exuded a frightening aura, and his face was livid, filled with killing intent. Zhou Gaoyang instantly had goosebumps all over his body. He felt a chill rise from the bottom of his heart, and instantly spread to his limbs. There was an entire minor tier between him and Yang Taichung, and he was only an experienced assassin, not a genius who could challenge those of a higher tier. On the other hand, Yang Taichung was a 2-star genius. In other words, there was a whole 6 sub-minor tiers of battle prowess between the two of them. This was an absolute suppression. He was not Ling Han, whose physique was strong. Facing an elite like Yang Taichung, it was very likely that he would be killed within 10 moves. Yang Taichung die. The 3 elites of the pirates also charged over. Yang Taichung only used one hand to block them as he stared coldly at Zhou Gaoyang, and said, "What else do you have to say?" Zhou Gaoyang did not speak. Suddenly he became one with his sword and he directly flew out. He did not attack Yang Taichung, nor did he want to die with Ling Han. Instead, he directly dove towards the surface of the sea. Obviously, he wanted to escape to the bottom of the sea. Although the gravity here was frighteningly strong, and if one went down they would basically sink to the bottom, and would have to walk step by step like a normal person no matter how long it took, they would definitely be able to walk out of the sea in 8 to 10 years. It was better than fighting Yang Taichung and losing their lives, right? "You want to leave?" Yang Taichung smirked coldly. His other hand stretched out, grabbing toward Zhou Gaoyang. This strike was enough to display the terrifying strength of a peak paragon. The black hand stretched out endlessly, actually turning into a small mountain. More than 10 divine runes flickered, emitting a soul-stirring aura. This hand was too big, and it instantly covered the entire ship, blocking Zhou Gaoyang's path. "Sky-piercing sword!" Zhou Gaoyang shouted. His body suddenly sped up, and he and his sword became one, colliding with the big hand. Puff! The sword light flashed like a rain of light, flashing explosively in the sky. Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth, and saw that Zhou Gaoyang had actually pierced a hole through that large hand. Zhou Gaoyang flew out, but his sword light had become incredibly dim. Obviously, he had paid a considerable price for this strike. "Can you escape?" Yang Taichung smirked coldly. With a wave of his hand, he once again gave chase. "Ah!" Zhou Gaoyang screamed in agony. He was caught by the large hand, and his bones instantly creaked, causing him to scream in pain involuntarily. The difference in strength was really too obvious. With the suppression of 6 sub-minor levels, added with the fact that Zhou Gaoyang had no fighting spirit at all, and only wanted to escape, he was even more easily captured by Yang Taichung. Die! The 3 pirate elites attacked repeatedly. Pung pung pung. Their attacks fell like raindrops. Yang Taichung only used a single hand to parry, so he naturally could not completely nullify the attacks. He was struck by a few blows, but his physique was also relatively astonishing. Only a trickle of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. Under the combined attacks of 3 great elites, he was actually still able to capture a quasi-elite at the peak stage of the high extreme alive. This kind of strength was really incredibly shocking. Spare me. Zhou Gaoyang immediately begged for mercy. I didn't kill him, I really didn't kill him. Who? How could Yang Taichung believe him? His right hand tightened, and Zhou Gaoyang was forcefully crushed, turning into a rain of blood. He humped and released his right hand. That large hand slowly disappeared. Endless pirates, let me send you all to hell today. His killing intent had been aroused, and his 3-meter-tall figure was like a demon lord, exuding a powerful deterrent force. Die, die, die. The pirates similarly did not fear a battle. Caca brat, now it's just us again, die. The bald man attacked again, attacking Ling Han. Ling Han met him head-on. As long as the bald man did not use a powerful technique, he could completely withstand the other's attacks with his physique. At most, he would be slightly wounded, and the indestructible Heaven Scroll would instantly heal him. In terms of battle prowess, he was currently only at the level of 5 or 6 stars, but in terms of endurance he was definitely at the level of a freakish 10 stars. Even elites at the consummate level could not kill him. There was practically no justice in this world. Ling Han felt that it was a bit of a pity. Being harassed by this bald man, he could not help Shui Yinyu kill the pirates. Then he would do it himself. Ling Han continued to use the 7 kills subduing soul technique, and every strike was accurate. Even if a cultivator at the peak stage of the medium extreme was hit by this technique, he would also explode with a single punch and draw them into his spatial spirit tool. This caused the bald man to howl in fury. Under his pursuit, Ling Han actually still had the strength to kill others. This was completely a great humiliation to him. On one hand, the weak pirates were being eliminated, and on the other hand, the crew was also being slaughtered. This almost drove Yang Taichung crazy, and he soared into the sky in fury. His 3-meter-tall figure actually expanded once again, transforming into a 6-meter-tall giant. His clothes were torn apart, and only a pair of underpants covered that important part. There were 9 almost circular seals on his body, and they were currently flashing, causing his power to increase by another level. 9 seal divine patterns. A few elites among the pirates exclaimed in shock. The secret technique of the Yang clan. Sacrificing a certain amount of lifespan as the price to increase battle prowess by 1 star. In the first place, Yang Taichung was already strong enough, and now that his battle prowess had increased by another star, there was definitely no one that could block him head-on. After all, this was at the price of sacrificing lifespan. For living beings, what was more precious than lifespan? All of you die. Yang Taichung displayed his invincible might, fully displaying the demeanor of an elite. Ling Han was also astonished. If he clashed head-on with Yang Taichung, it was very possible that all of his internal organs would explode in less than 10 moves. If it was 100 moves, even his godly bones might be completely shattered. After all, he was at the peak stage of the consummate level, and now he had even reached 3 stars of battle prowess. Following Yang Taichung's display of might, the pirates instantly fell into a disadvantageous position, because Lu Ying and the others had also begun to display their true battle prowess. However, in Ling Han's opinion, the most eye-catching person on the scene was definitely not Lu Ying and the other consummate level elites, nor was it the giant Yang Taichung. Instead, it was Fu Tian, that young man who had only appeared to be 16 or 17 years old. This guy was practically a barbarian. His cultivation level was only at the peak stage of the low extreme, but his battle prowess was extremely powerful. He did not need any weapons at all, and merely used every part of his body to display extraordinary effects. Ling Han had directly bitten off his opponent's nose. Chapter 10:17. When cultivators fought, they usually used their hands, feet, or weapons. Probably only an extremely small number of people would cultivate strange techniques like the Iron Head technique. However, if one used their mouth as a weapon apart from Hunyo in the past, it was probably this youth. Fu Tian's battle style was practically a copy of Hunyo's, but his performance was even crueler. His hands seemed to be forged from metal and stone, and could easily tear through his opponent's defenses, rip open their stomachs and bite their throats. In any case, it was fine as long as he could injure or kill his opponent. He displayed his unique characteristics to the fullest. This was the result of countless battles. This person should have experienced who knew how many battles like this, and it had already become second nature to him. Once he started fighting, his body would naturally move like this. Where on earth did this youth come from? The pirates couldn't hold on any longer. Previously, 60 people had boarded the ship, and now there were actually less than 20 alive. Their losses could be said to be extremely heavy. More importantly, they still couldn't take down this ship. Not a single one can escape. Yang Taiching humped coldly. He unleashed his full battle prowess, continuously killing from the bow to the stern, and from the left to the right, not allowing any pirate a chance to escape. Pung! Just at this moment, the ship suddenly shook and almost flipped over. The people on the ship all staggered and stopped fighting. What was going on? Not good. Yang Taiching and the other pirates looked into the distance, and expressions of shock appeared on their faces. Something that could cause them to show expressions of fear had to be in extremely grave danger. Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth, and also looked into the distance. He saw at least 100 or so giant snakes swimming over. Every one of them was over 30 meters long, and their bodies were as thick as a well. There were green spots on their bodies. Green-spotted demonic snakes, a crew member exclaimed. These were special demonic beasts of the Star Sea, and they had evolved from demonic snakes. They were demonic beasts that lived in groups, and there would be at least a few hundred adult demonic snakes at the mountain river tier in a nest. Small ships could only flee if they encountered these demonic snakes. Pung! The ship shook again and actually tilted to the left, about to capsize. Humph! Yang Taiching leaped up and stomped down on the right side of the ship. Pong! The ship shook violently, and the momentum of its capsizing was instantly stopped. Then it flipped back. There was an 80% chance that there was a giant snake at the bottom of the boat, trying to overturn the boat. Once a martial artist entered the water region, their strength would be greatly reduced. Demonic beasts that had reached the deity level had developed their intelligence to the point of being able to take on a human form. Naturally, they knew how to maximize their advantage. Ling Han's eyes swept over the surroundings, and he saw that they had already been surrounded by a horde of demonic snakes. They were surrounded by large snakes that were over 30 meters long, and every single one of them was in the mountain river tier. However, he could not be sure of their exact cultivation level. There were also some small snakes that were no more than 3 meters long, lagging far behind. They were only in the Shattering Void tier and Heaven tier. Obviously, they were not qualified to join the battle. They would have to wait for the giant snake to finish the battle before they could come up and devour the martial artist's flesh and blood. Spirit meat was a great tonic for martial artists, but the blood essence of martial artists was also a good thing for demonic beasts. This was especially true for deity-level martial artists, as they were too nutritious for demonic beasts of the Shattering Void tier. These demonic snakes must have smelled the scent of blood in the seawater, which was why they had come out of their nest in order to feast. The situation suddenly became extremely grim. Pung! The boat was still swaying, and the demonic snake below was obviously unwilling to give up. It was determined to overturn the boat. At this moment, no one dared to fight amongst themselves. They all stood at different corners of the boat, and attacked one after another to maintain the boat's stability. If the boat were to overturn, it would be difficult for everyone to escape death. Pung 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 pung. The boat shook violently, and it was as if someone was striking a gong. Not good. These demonic snakes are going to destroy the boat. Everyone's expression changed. If someone dove into the water, they would see that there were over a dozen giant snakes swimming under the boat, and they were spitting water bombs at the bottom of the boat. These water bombs would explode the moment they came into contact with the bottom of the boat, causing the boat to shake violently. Below the boat, there was a gigantic demonic snake that was 300 meters long. The stripes on its body were a faint silver color. This was the demonic snake king. Its cultivation level had reached the peak stage of the mountain river tier, and there was even a possibility that it could break through to the sun-moon tier. Thus, its stripes had also changed. Just now it was precisely this snake that was trying to overturn the boat. The boat shook violently, and it was as if a huge wave had appeared on the surface of the sea. Those below the immortal level would definitely be swaying from the shaking, and they would have long since fallen into the sea. However, Ling Han and the others were stuck tightly to the boat like magnets. No matter how much the boat shook, they wouldn't budge. However, everyone's expression became even more solemn, because they all knew that this boat wouldn't be able to hold on for long under such a frenzied attack. "We've wasted a lot of time here," Yang Taiching encouraged everyone. "If we can hold on for 2 days, the next boat will arrive. It's a large boat, and there's a great elite of the Sun-Moon tier guarding it," Yang Taiching encouraged everyone. If there was a Sun-Moon tier elite guarding it, then putting aside the fact that there were only a few hundred demonic snakes here, even if there were thousands or tens of thousands of them, they would still be slaughtered. The problem was, could they hold on for as long as 2 days? "The boat is about to break," Fu Tian suddenly said. However, there wasn't a shred of fear on his face. Instead, it was filled with fighting spirit. He was definitely a battle maniac. Ha! True enough, a crisp sound rang out from the boat. That was the keel breaking. Everyone looked at each other, but before they could say anything, there was a boom, and the whole boat suddenly disintegrated, turning into at least a dozen pieces. "Stand on the deck of the boat, or else we'll lose our buoyancy, and we'll definitely die if we fight in the water," Yang Taiching shouted loudly. He was the captain, and had to be responsible for all the crew members and guests. Everyone did as he said, and stood on different pieces of the boat. The pirates also stopped fighting. Over 20 people were scattered on 3 pieces of the boat. As for the boat they had ferried here, it had long since been crushed into pieces by the demonic snakes, and could no longer be used. Hong, a large snake, burst out of the water, and with a swing of its tail, its thick, long and powerful tail swept toward a person on a piece of the boat. Very coincidentally, Ling Han was on this piece. Thankfully, there was not only Ling Han on this piece but also Yang Taichung. Scram! He clenched his fist and punched the snake's tail. Pung! The snake's tail actually exploded, turning into a rain of blood that filled the sky. It was also so painful that the giant snake continued to writhe on the surface of the sea, raising angry waves. As expected of Yang Taichung, so strong. "Wife, come closer." Ling Han wielded his sword with his right hand, while his left hand wrapped around Shui Yenyu's slender waist, and said, "Today, it's possible that we'll become a pair of lovebirds that share the same fate. You still haven't said a single word of love to me, so you won't let me die with regret, right?" Shui Yenyu rolled her eyes. This guy was too good at pretending. They clearly had the Black Tower, so even if everyone here died, the two of them would still be able to live on well. Reading on a cell phone was more refreshing. Chapter 10:18. The demonic snake horde attacked. Bang bang bang. Their attacks were extremely varied. Some of them spat out water bombs, some of them swept their tails, and some of them moved the pieces of the ship underwater. Their goal was the same, and that was to throw Ling Han and the others off the pieces of the ship. As long as they fell into the water, the demon snake would be able to turn all these martial artists into food with a small price. This time no one dared to hold back. They all used their full strength, not daring to be careless in the slightest. Otherwise, they would be putting their lives on the line. Although Ling Han was not worried about his life, if he sank to the bottom of the sea, it would be a big problem for him to return to the shore. Therefore, he exerted his full strength, using his body as a bow and his yuan power as an arrow, shooting at the group of snakes in the distance. Although he didn't use the godly metal arrow, he could still unleash battle prowess surpassing 5 stars. One had to realize that Ling Han's cultivation level had already reached the early stage of the medium extreme, and after increasing his battle prowess by 5 stars, his battle prowess was equivalent to the middle stage of the high extreme. With a single arrow, as long as it wasn't a demonic snake in the high extreme, it would definitely be insta-killed. It couldn't be helped. The annihilating Dragon Star arrow was too fast. Those who weren't as strong as Ling Han wouldn't be able to dodge it. Although cultivators were afraid of close combat, They would generally only open up a distance of 2 to 3 feet to maximize their battle prowess. However, this distance was completely incomparable to the annihilating Dragon Star arrow. Thus, when it came to killing efficiency, no one could compare to Ling Han. Seeing this, Yang Taiching decided that he might as well just defend and not attack. He only guarded the safety of this piece of the hull, so that Ling Han could attack to his heart's content. Xiu 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 xiu. Arrow after arrow flew out, causing great damage. Bam! The surface of the water suddenly burst open, and a huge snake demon drilled out. The stripes on its body were astonishingly silver. Snake King Yang Taiching's expression instantly became extremely ugly. Shua! The moment the Snake King appeared, it opened its mouth and spat out a water bullet, which shot toward Yang Taiching. The speed of this water bullet was actually not inferior to the annihilating Dragon Star arrow. The Snake King opened its mouth, and that water bullet flew out, instantly arriving in front of Yang Taiching. Ha! Yang Taiching punched out with all the power in his fist. Pong! His fist landed on the water bomb, but his whole body was directly sent flying. He flew a distance of several hundred meters, and only then did he fall into the sea with a splash. Even someone as strong as Yang Taiching was not a match for a single strike from the Snake King. Everyone was shocked. Were they really going to be annihilated here? Pong! A figure burst out of the water. It was Yang Taiching. His legs seemed to be flying as he sprinted on the surface of the sea. Along the way he formed a wave. Spiritual essence rose from the top of his head, and his forehead was drenched in cold sweat. The gravity in this region of the sea was too strong, and if he wanted to resist this kind of gravity, he would have to expend a huge amount of origin power. Thus, even if it was only a short distance of several thousand feet, Yang Taiching still had to pay a huge price. It couldn't be helped. If he sank to the bottom, then he would basically be dead. Instantly, several dozen large snakes went forward to attack, but Yang Taiching was now a 3-star genius in the consummate level, and a punch from him was enough to kill a large snake. Instantly, the sky was filled with a rain of blood. The Snake King was furious, and with a dive, it was already in front of Yang Taiching when it reappeared. Its head was raised high, and it was about to shoot another water bullet. Go! Ling Han shot out an arrow. This time, not only did he use the Eye of Truth to find the weak point of the Snake King's defense, he also activated the Flame Divine pattern, which was even more threatening. Even the Snake King did not dare to take this arrow head-on. Pa! The Snake King swung its tail, and sent the Origin Power arrow flying. However, Yang Taiching also took the opportunity to change his position. With a leap in the air, he landed on a wooden plank. Though the wooden plank was small, it gave him a chance to catch his breath, and he floated and sank on the surface of the sea. The Snake King was furious and suddenly turned around. Its 2 lantern-sized eyes stared at Ling Han, exuding a boundless chill. Ling Han couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. This Snake King was too frightening, and should be infinitely close to the Sun Moon tier. That was why it could make him feel a boundless chill just by staring at him. Once this attack was unleashed, it would definitely be earth-shattering. It's all this brat's fault that attracted the Snake King's attention. Push him into the sea lest he implicates us. Luo Wu and Fan Yong were also on this piece of wreckage, and they were both staring fiercely at Ling Han. The Snake King had obviously set its eyes on Ling Han, so if this big guy pounced, even they would be doomed. However, as long as they pushed Ling Han into the water, then they would at least be able to survive for a while. As long as they were alive, there would be hope. They would be able to survive until the next large ship arrived, and then they would be able to escape from their predicament. Why don't the 2 of you go down? Ling Han asked coldly. These 2 people were really selfish to the extreme. They were already at a time like this, and they were actually still fighting amongst themselves. If you don't go down, we'll send you down. Luo Wu and Fan Yong moved at the same time. They had come for Ling Han in the first place, but they hadn't dared to make a move so openly before. However, for the sake of their own lives now, how could they care about such things? These 2 people were both elites in the high extreme, so the might of their attacks was naturally astonishing. Ling Han humphed and activated the 7 kills subduing soul technique. His target was Fan Yong, but there was actually a flicker of light on the latter's body, which forcibly blocked his spiritual attack. Ha 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 ha. This is a secret treasure bestowed by young master, refined by an elite of the heavenly body tier. It can resist spiritual attacks. You didn't expect this, did you? Fan Yong laughed loudly. It was a pity that the divine sword was in Zhuo Zhao's hands. Otherwise, he would be able to slice Ling Han in two at the waist right now. However, that was fine. He and Luo Wu would definitely be able to blast Ling Han into the sea. Peng! The two of them attacked together, and sure enough, Ling Han was forcibly shaken off the fragment of the ship and fell into the sea with a thud. Ling Han! Shui Yinyu exclaimed in surprise. She actually took the initiative to jump into the sea. Foolish woman! Fan Yong couldn't help but curse upon seeing this. However, his expression was extremely ugly. He knew how infatuated Zhao Luan was with this woman, and he had wanted to marry her the moment he advanced to the Sun-Moon tier. However, there was a 99% chance that Shui Yinyu would die at the bottom of the sea. How were he and Zhuo Xiao going to explain this to Zhao Luan when they returned? However, he didn't have any spare time to think about this huge problem. The demonic snake once again launched a fierce attack. Its attacks like a tidal wave. Kill, 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 kill. Although there weren't many of them, mountain river tier cultivators were all immortals. Every single one of them was equivalent to the condensation of the essence of heaven and earth, and the blood that flowed from them contained powerful vitality and power. Soon, the surrounding sea was dyed the color of blood. This attracted many small fries, but it also attracted even stronger creatures. A large flatfish appeared. Its two eyes were actually on one side, and its speed was extraordinarily fast. Its large mouth was wide open, and as it floated up from the bottom of the sea, at least a dozen large snakes were swallowed into its mouth, directly disappearing into nothingness. This was a terrifying demonic beast at the Sun-Moon tier. Chapter 10:20. The two pieces of the ship were now like two small boats, carrying the survivors as they drifted on the sea. They were trying their best to return to the Yang clan's route. This way, they would only need 3 days at most before they would encounter the Yang clan ship and be rescued. However, they did not encounter any good fortune after surviving the disaster. Not long after, they encountered a huge storm, which made them dizzy and lost all sense of direction. When the storm calmed down, Yang Taiching took out his compass and compared it, and discovered that they had deviated very dramatically from the normal route. They had no choice but to row as hard as they could and return to their original route. Fortunately, they were all immortal level experts, so they did not need to worry about food and water. Very soon, night fell and everyone took turns to rest. However, none of them dared to relax too much, because they were all scheming against each other. Who could trust who? Early in the morning, a red sun jumped out from the sea's surface, extremely magnificent. There seems to be a ship over there. A black dot appeared in front of them. Everyone focused their eyes, and there was indeed something floating on the sea's surface. Be careful, it might be a pirate, Yang Taiching said. This place had completely deviated from the Yang clan's route. Theoretically, it was impossible for the Yang clan ship to appear here, so the possibility of it being a pirate ship was very high. That's not right. Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth, shook his head and said, "That's not a ship but an island." The reason why it looked like a ship was because this island was really too far away from them. An island! Everyone's spirits rose. If they could get on the island, they could make some repairs and at least make a few real oars or even a sail. It would be better than what they were doing now, right? They rowed forward again, and after a long time, the island became bigger and bigger before their eyes. Finally, they could clearly see that it was indeed an island, and it was very big. This shocked quite a few people. How could Ling Han's eyesight be so good? After another long period of time, they finally reached the shore. Let's split up and gather here one day later. Gather all the materials that can be used, Yang Taiching said. Yang Taiching said. He put away the two pieces of the ship to prevent anyone from leaving on their own, and leaving everyone else on the island. He was the strongest and he was also the captain, so he naturally had the final say. Moreover, he was more trustworthy. Otherwise, no one would feel at ease leaving the two boats in the hands of others. Luo Wu and Fan Yong knew each other. After going through trials and tribulations together, They had already formed an alliance. Now that everyone was going to move separately, they naturally had their eyes on Ling Han. Unfortunately, Yang Taiching had chosen to travel with Ling Han, and their plan to follow and assassinate him was foiled. In fact, Ling Han was also very disappointed. He still had the crimson ground locking net that he hadn't used, so he wouldn't have to fear even cultivators at the high extreme. Moreover, if he used the 7-kill subduing soul technique to paralyze his opponent, and then directly drew him into the Black Tower, he would definitely be able to kill any opponent in the high extreme. This island was very large and was long and narrow. Right now, they were about 1/3 of the island. Thus, they had split into 2 groups. One group headed east, and the other group headed west. The island was densely covered with forests, and each tree was at least 300 meters tall. Their leaves were very plump, so when one walked under the trees, there was almost no light that could pass through. It appeared very eerie. There were 6 people in Ling Han's group. Aside from him and Shui Yinyu, there was also Yang Taichung, Yin Yuanxiang, Fu Tian, and Jin Zhihui. It was very obvious that Yang Taichung had separated Ling Han from his enemies. After they set off, Ling Han smiled at the sword-hugging youth and said, "Brother Jin, don't you feel tired hugging a sword all day long?" Jin Zhihui shook his head and said, "Only by constantly experiencing the feelings of the sword can I forge a supreme sword. Is this a sword fanatic?" Shui Yinyu suddenly faltered and said, "Could it be that Brother Jin is from Swordforge Manor?" If it were any other man, being stared at by such a seductive beauty like Shui Yinyu, they would probably be jumping up and down with excitement. However, Jin Zhihui did not have any reaction at all. He only hugged his sword, as if this was the true lover of his life. "I indeed come from Swordforge Manor." He nodded, appearing to be completely unsophisticated. As expected. Shui Yinyu nodded. The people of Swordforge Manor were all surnamed Jin. "What is Swordforge Manor?" Ling Han asked. Swordforge Manor is the most renowned holy land for forging tools on Joint Peace Planet. However, this manor only forges swords, and does not forge any other types of weapons. The weapons they forge are not only sharp and sturdy, but many also have wondrous special effects, Shui Yinyu explained. Every swordsman takes pride in owning a sword from the Swordforge Manor. So awesome! Ling Han couldn't help but smile, and said, "Brother Jin, if I have materials in the future, can I ask you to forge a sword for me?" Yang Taiching couldn't help but shake his head. He had naturally heard of Swordforge Manor, and knew that the people of this manor were very strange. They were clearly renowned in the world, yet did not care about money or power at all, and were busy forging swords all day long. But though they liked forging swords, who they forged for depended on their mood. For some people it was useless even if they paid tens of thousands of gold, but there were also some people who were given a sword without a single penny. If Ling Han spoke rashly like this, he would probably be mercilessly rejected by Jin Zhihui. "Sure." Jin Zhihui nodded without hesitation. "Who?" Yang Taichung almost spluttered. Didn't they say that everyone in Swordforge Manor had strange temperaments? Why did they agree so readily? Jin Zhihui scratched his head, and said slightly bashfully, "However, I have not forged a sword yet." Phew! No wonder he agreed so readily. He should be an apprentice, right? Yet Ling Han laughed loudly, clapped the other's shoulder and said, "Then it's settled. In the future, I'll leave my sword to you." "Aren't you afraid that I'll waste materials?" Jin Zhihui asked in surprise. If anyone else heard him say this, they would probably directly shake their heads. Even out of consideration for his face, they would change the topic, and not mention the matter of forging swords again. Ling Han said, "Just based on what you said just now, experience the feeling of a sword, I am sure that you will definitely be able to forge an exceptional sword." Jin Zhihui couldn't help but feel excited. Even in Swordforge Manor, he had not obtained the approval of a single person. Even his father had advised him not to daydream. Only this man in front of him had given him his approval. Most importantly, though he had said experience the feeling of a sword, now that it had come from Ling Han's mouth, it made him feel as if he had found a confidant. "All right, in the future, I will definitely forge an exceptional sword for you." He clenched his fists, his eyes shining. Before, he had always been a man of few words, But now he was a chatterbox, treating Ling Han as a confidant, and continuously speaking. "Brother Ling, I want to forge the strongest sword in the world," he said. Chapter 1021. The Strongest Sword? Ling Han was surprised. This was not said casually. Was there such a thing as the strongest in the world? There was always a higher mountain, and there could only be stronger. Where did the strongest come from? Yang Taichung and the others all shook their heads. The strongest should only be the naive thoughts of a child. The strongest sword. Jin Zhihui nodded repeatedly. "I will definitely forge the strongest sword." "How?" Ling Han was very interested. Jin Zhihui's mind was filled with forging swords, and now that he had Ling Han as a close friend, he naturally did not mind sharing secrets with him. He said, "I am currently researching a kind of material. If I can successfully refine it, there is hope to forge the strongest sword." Pooh! Yang Taichung and the others were all disdainful. What kind of material was so awesome? If there really was such a material, would there still be a place for you to research? It would have long been snatched away by others. Yet Jin Zhihui did not even look at these people. Instead, he continued, "This is a kind of material that has unlimited possibilities for improvement. You know, when we forge a sword, no matter how much effort we spend, we will still be limited by the material itself." "That's right." Ling Han nodded. "You could not possibly forge level 1 godly metal into a level 2 god tool. The material itself determined that this was an impossible thing. However, if we can successfully extract that kind of material, I should say extract it and forge it into a weapon, it can swallow other materials or god tools on its own. From level 1 to level 2, from level 2 to level 3, there is unlimited room for improvement," Jin Zhihui said excitedly. Instantly, Yang Taichung and the others all opened their eyes wide. Even their mouths were about to open in shock. A god tool that had unlimited room for improvement? To say nothing of realizing it, just thinking about it made one's scalp go numb. Would an ordinary person think of such a fantasy? If such a god tool really appeared, then the whole world would undergo a revolution because of it. Ling Han was also stunned for a moment, and then heavily patted Jin Zhihui's shoulder. "Brother Jin, you are definitely a genius, the one and only." Jin Zhihui's expression was filled with gratitude. When he told this theory to his clansmen and even his father, all he received was mockery and ridicule. Even his father, who was the best to him, advised him to give up on such an unrealistic idea. "Brother Ling, do you believe that I can forge such a sword?" he asked. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "If I don't give it a try, then there's really no possibility at all. Even if there's only a 1 in a billion chance of success through hard work, there's still a glimmer of hope." Yes. Jin Zhihui nodded his head repeatedly. Ling Han's words had really touched the bottom of his heart. He felt that he had met a confidant and wanted to dig out his heart and lungs. Yang Taichung and the others, however, lost interest. The strongest sword technique sounded awesome, but no matter how they thought about it, it was impossible. "Brother Ling, when I finish forging the divine sword, I'll send it over to you," Jin Zhihui said. He loved forging swords, but he was not a swordsman. In reality, all of the Swordforge Manor's people were outstanding hammering masters, because forging weapons required them to constantly swing their hammers, so they were not used to using swords. "Then I'm looking forward to it," Ling Han said with a smile. Jin Zhihui nodded heavily. It was because he had encountered a bottleneck that he had wandered around everywhere, changing his mood and seeking inspiration. The fierce battles of life and death these few days had given him some comprehension. But though he did not have much life experience, he himself was not an idiot. Regarding this, he did not leak any information at all. He had already decided that he would go into seclusion and cultivate diligently after he returned. When he came out, perhaps he would have already solved all his problems, and would be able to forge the strongest divine sword in history. The 6 of them walked in the gloomy forest, but all of a sudden, the area in front of them suddenly brightened, and dazzling sunlight appeared. The 6 of them simultaneously opened their mouths due to intense shock. In front of them, an incredibly large and deep pit had actually appeared. This pit was really ridiculously large, occupying almost a third of the entire island's space. Moreover, it was unknown how deep it was. The walls of the pit were completely straight, without the slightest bit of cushioning, and were as smooth as a mirror. It was as if a huge pillar that reached into the heavens had stabbed into this place, leaving behind such an eye of heaven and earth. This was too sudden. Their front foot was still in the forest, but in the next step, the forest disappeared and such a cliff appeared. If they were not careful, they would directly step over it. It should be known that the gravity in this world was terrifyingly strong, and even flight god tools were useless here. Once they fell into such a deep pit, it was really uncertain whether they could still come out. There was nothing to be afraid of in the sea, because the slope of the sea was gentle. If you walked in a certain direction at the bottom of the sea, there would definitely be a day when you would reach the shore, but here, if they fell down, it was extremely likely that they would never come out again. Everyone stuck their heads out from the edge of the cliff, and saw that below them was an immeasurably deep darkness, as if they could reach the center of the joint peace planet's crust. If that was really the case, even heavenly body tier elites would die if they fell down. The divine fire inside the planet was definitely able to burn even heavenly body tier elites into ashes. When they stuck their heads out, there was still the pull of gravity. Everyone hurriedly pulled their bodies back. If they lost their center of gravity and fell down, they would be done for. Lord Yang, have you heard of this island? Ling Han asked. Yang Tiecheng's expression was filled with shock. He shook his head slowly and said, I am ashamed. Though the Yang clan is known as the overlord of the Star Sea, we do not know of the existence of such an island. True enough, even the Yang clan did not know. Everyone was silent. Suddenly, this island was shrouded in a veil of mystery. And though mystery would arouse one's curiosity, it similarly represented unknown danger. Ling Han chopped off a large tree, and then tossed it into this deep pit. Xiao, the large tree, landed, and soon became a small black dot. Then it was swallowed by the darkness in the deep pit, and there was not the slightest trace of it. And after a long time there was still no sound of impact. This place is not connected to the sea, Ling Han said. Everyone nodded. Though they had climbed some mountains on their way to the island, the sea level was definitely not so low. There should have been the sound of trees crashing into the sea long ago. If it was connected to the sea, then after entering it to explore, they could still find an underwater passage to enter the sea, and then think of a way to go ashore. But the situation now was that this pit could really reach a depth of several tens of thousands of meters. This was too frightening. Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth, but it was useless. He could not reach the bottom either. Yang Taiching was the first to show a wary expression. Very soon, Ling Han and the others all showed wary expressions, and looked to the left. Voila, 3 people suddenly walked out from the forest. They were not Luo Wu, Fan Yong, or Lu Ying, but rather 3 young men, respectively sitting on a tiger, a wolf, and a leopard. But upon closer inspection, one would discover that these 3 ferocious beasts were not real, but rather made from metal. They could not be said to be lifelike, and one would be able to tell with a slight closer inspection. Puppeteer! Yang Taiching and the others exclaimed at the same time. Chapter 1022. There were all kinds of extraordinary people in the immortal realm. The most common but also the one with the highest status was alchemists. If you didn't have a weapon, then you could buy a piece of godly metal, and you could forge a usable weapon no matter how hard you tried. And after using it for a long time, your own martial art intent would be infused into the weapon, and it could actually be used as a god tool that belonged only to you. In the immortal realm, the definition of a god tool was a weapon that anyone could wield, and possessed immortal level might. Thus, the difference between a weapon nurtured by oneself and a god tool was that one could only be used by oneself, and would be useless in the hands of others, while the other could be used by anyone as long as they had enough power to wield it. Of course, artificers were also extraordinary people. They could brand special formations and other complicated things on weapons, so that the weapon could become like a cultivator and possess great might. Because of this, artificers also had a high status. Every cultivator yearned for a suitable weapon. Additionally, artificers could also make armor and increase defense. Only when one was alive would there be endless possibilities. Aside from that, there were also formation masters. For example, the Great Formation in the imperial capital was created by a formation master, and he had a very high status on the joint peace planet. Even the 3 great emperors were very polite when they saw him. And the next group of extraordinary people belonged to an extremely rare group, such as divination masters, astrologers, and puppeteers. Puppeteers could make an inanimate object seem as if it had life. In the imperial capital, puppeteers could also be found. For example, there were a very small number of carriages that were not driven by demonic beasts but by puppets. This was a combination of artificing, formations, and even some alchemy, and was very complicated. Thus, the number of puppeteers was pitifully small. Those puppet carriages in the imperial capital were not the works of the current era, but had been left behind a very long time ago. Thus, when 3 people riding puppet beasts suddenly appeared on the island, Yang Taiching and the others were naturally shocked. This was a deserted island, and there was even a shocking sinkhole. Puppeteers had even appeared. This was too strange. Ha 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 ha, I didn't think there would be guests on the island, the young man riding the tiger said. I felt some commotion earlier, and thought there was a problem with the machine-operated bird. I didn't think there would really be guests. As the captain, Yang Taiching naturally would not pass on this responsibility. He clasped his hands and said, We encountered a shipwreck and drifted here. Please tell us what this place is. This is Earth's core island, the young man said with a smile. The young man on the tiger smiled and pointed to the deep pit at the side. We call this the Earth's core cave. It is said that it leads to the center of the Earth. Right, I'm Guoxiuwen, and these 2 are my junior brothers, Ning Tai and Dong Yulong. Greetings. Ning Tai and Dong Yulong cupped their fists in salute. Gref of, said Ning Tai. And Ning Island. King. And of, he said, Island. Of world king, first have of, said have, and have of king, said. Everyone, please take a rest in our village. Can we make a boat for you and send you off? Ning Tai said. However, we are used to peace. Please keep our island's location a secret. Don't leak it out and ruin our peaceful life, Dong Yulong said. Yang Taiching and the others nodded. We still have 3 companions. Though Yang Taiching didn't like Luo Wu and Fan Yong as the captain, he still had responsibilities. Got it. 2 of our junior brothers are already hurrying over. We'll meet up in the village later, Guoxiuwen said with a smile. Yang Taiching nodded. Everyone, please come with us. Guoxiuwen urged the tiger he was riding on, and slowly walked down the mountain. Everyone followed. After walking for close to an hour, they finally passed through layers of forest, and a valley appeared in front of them. The mountain walls were steep, and it was surrounded by mountains on all sides. There was only one very narrow entrance. One man could hold the pass against 10,000 enemies. Such a thought flashed through Ling Han's mind. As long as there was an elite, even if there was an army outside, they wouldn't be able to break in. But similarly, as long as there was an elite blocking this place, the people inside wouldn't be able to come out either. There was no one guarding the entrance. Instead, there were only 2 stone statues. One was an 8-legged spider, and the other was a large bird with its wings spread. Its claws were sturdy, and even thicker than a human's arm. They entered the valley, and suddenly, the valley opened up, revealing a beautiful scene. Here, farmland formed a circle, and in the center was a very, very large village. There were small bridges, flowing water, and houses. It was filled with the scenery of the countryside. Suddenly seeing this scene would cause one to forget the cruelty of battle and the bloodshed of power. Only relaxation and relief would remain. What a good place! Yang Taiching said spontaneously. The 3 of you, I wonder if I can retire here in the future? Guoxiuwen chuckled and said, If Brother Yang has decided to retire, why not? But let me remind you that after coming here, please forget your identity as a cultivator. We strictly forbid fighting here. Whether you are in the heavenly body tier or in the shattering void tier, you are only a farmer or a weaver here. Everyone nodded. Every place had its own rules. Even a powerful dragon would not oppress a local snake. What more when they were living under someone else's roof? In the farmland, there were people leading cows and plowing the land, and there were people transplanting rice seedlings. They looked busy yet leisurely. They walked along the small path between the farmland and entered the village. There were a few pedestrians on the street, and the majority stayed inside their houses. Some were watering plants and some were sunbathing. There was even smoke rising from the chimneys, and it appeared incredibly peaceful. The people here all like peace and quiet, so please do not disturb others. After coming here, everyone will forget their previous identity, Guoxiuan reminded. After walking for a while, they arrived at the center of the village. This was a very large manor, which was about 1/3 of the size of the whole village, and was surrounded by walls. The main gate was wide open, and after entering, there was a very large courtyard that was paved with blue stone bricks. It looked a little like a martial arts field, but there was not a single person practicing martial arts. Everyone, I will first arrange your accommodations. My master likes to make strange and rare things, and once he does, he may take a few days, so you may have to wait for a few days before he can introduce you, Guoxiuan said apologetically. Everyone said that it was fine. If they did not receive any help, who knew how many days they would have to drift on the boundless sea before they could return to the Yang clan's sea route. Thus they did not mind waiting here for a few days. Guoxiuan led them to the left side of the manor. There were many small courtyards here, and they were all assigned to each person. After the arrangements were made, Luo Wu, Fan Yong, and Luing also arrived under the guidance of 2 young men. These 2 young men were both Guoxiuan's junior brothers. One was called Chuida, and the other was called Bu Zhongyun. Ling Han and Shui Yinyu stayed in the same courtyard. In any case, they had the Black Tower, so they did not care about their living environment. At this time, the sky had also darkened. It's very strange, Ling Han said. Oh. Chapter 10:24. Something's wrong, it's too suspicious, Shui Yinyu said immediately after returning to her own courtyard. Ling Han nodded and said, "Wife is wise." Shui Yinyu rolled her eyes at him in annoyance and said, "Are you showing off your foresight? All my achievements are inseparable from wife's guidance. Aren't you my teacher?" Ling Han said with a smile. Shui Yinyu's pretty face flushed involuntarily. She had indeed been Ling Han's teacher for a while, and now she was about to be taken to bed by Ling Han. Though they weren't master and disciple, but teacher and student, she still felt shy when she thought about it. That Chuida obviously doesn't want us to investigate. Otherwise, according to what he said, the people here are used to resting early, so why would he stay there in the middle of the night? He's obviously spying on us. Ling Han nodded and said, "Unfortunately, I'm naturally curious. The more you don't want me to know, the more I want to know." This time, Shui Yinyu was on Ling Han's side, and said, "Then should we sneak out later?" "No sleep," Ling Han said with a smile. Shui Yinyu was driven mad. "Are your thoughts jumping again?" Ling Han kissed her and said, "This first day is when our curiosity is the greatest, and also when the other party is the most wary. I think the 5 people on the island should be watching over us. Unless we plan to immediately fall out with them, we definitely can't go out tonight." "Then wait until tomorrow?" Shui Yinyu asked. "Play it by ear," Ling Han said seriously. This valley was easy to defend and difficult to attack. There was only one way in and out, so it was a natural danger zone. Since they had already walked into the trap, they definitely couldn't be impulsive and reckless. Shui Yinyu nodded. In terms of taking the lead, she was increasingly inclined to let Ling Han make the decision, just in case they still entered the Black Tower. Shui Yinyu began to cultivate, while Ling Han continued to concoct his heavenly pearl pill. He had to concoct this pill as soon as possible. At that time, not only would it help his cultivation advance, but it would also bring him a lot of income. Cultivation certainly couldn't do without the support of money. At first it was gold and silver, then it was crystals, and now it was true essence stones. But in essence it was all the same. After one night, Ling Han revealed a satisfied smile. He was getting closer and closer to success. The 2 of them exited the Black Tower, ate breakfast, and left the courtyard. Some of Yang Tian's group had a good night's sleep and were in high spirits, while others were still exhausted. Clearly, they hadn't slept well last night. After all, people like Yang Taichung, Fan Yong, and the others all had rich experiences in the outside world, and knew the dangers of the world. They definitely couldn't trust others easily. On the contrary, Jin Zhihui and the others lacked vigilance in this aspect and slept very soundly last night. When they gathered together, Luo Wu and Fan Yong did not conceal their killing intent towards Ling Han at all. However, they were still living under someone else's roof, and Yang Taiching was also present, so they did not dare to make a move against Ling Han. Everyone, what a coincidence! My master just happened to come out of seclusion today, and would like to meet you all. Guoxiuwen walked over. Of course he was still riding that tiger puppet, as if he wouldn't be able to walk without that thing. But on the other hand, puppets could be seen as god tools that could self-awaken, and he rode on puppets all day long. Was he also carefully targeting them? Hehe, then we definitely have to pay a visit to Lord Island Master, everyone said with a smile. My master is an extremely brilliant puppeteer, and he's an expert in creating all kinds of strange things. With my master's help, I'm sure he'll be able to create an excellent ship for everyone to safely leave this place, Guoxiuwen said. These words struck into everyone's hearts. None of them had any plans to retreat into the mountains and forests. Under Guoxiuwen's lead, they arrived at the main hall of the manor. This was really a main hall. It was over 30 meters deep and 15 meters tall, just like a palace hall. In the innermost part of the main hall, an old man was currently holding a chair. He should be the master of Guoxiuwen and the others. The old man was very tall. Even when he was sitting, he was still as tall as an ordinary person, and could almost be compared to Yang Taichung. This old man is Pei Ji. The old man did not stand up, and only nodded at him. Then he smiled and said, "It is not that this old man is lacking in manners, but this old man has long since lost both of his legs, and it is not convenient for him to stand up." He opened up his long robe. Indeed, both of his legs were missing below the knees. Thinking back to what he had said, it was likely that they had been chopped off by someone, or there had been an accident and not naturally so. It's fine. Everyone hurriedly shook their heads. Peiji said, "This old man already knows what happened to all of you. It just so happens that this old man has some materials on hand, so I will spend a few days to make a small ship for all of you. It will take at least 5 days and at most 10 days. Once it is done, I will inform all of you. In these few days, all of you can rest well and enjoy a peaceful life." Thank you, Island Master. Everyone was overjoyed. This was a puppeteer, so he definitely had a pair of skillful hands. Peiji nodded. If all of you are interested in making puppets, you can chat with a few of my disciples. This old man also hopes to develop this skill, and let more people learn it. When these words were spoken, everyone was pleasantly surprised. The puppeteer art was the same as the ultimate arts of martial art, and was a type of secret treasure. But Peiji was actually willing to share it. This kind of breadth of mind was really shocking. Even Shui Yinyu could not make up her mind. Was she and Ling Han being overly suspicious? How could this kind of person possibly be a bad person? Peiji chatted with everyone for a while, but it was all empty pleasantries. Very soon he said that he did not want to waste time, and wanted to start building the ferry. Everyone was naturally happy that he could start as soon as possible, and they all took their leave. Everyone, if you are interested in making puppets, you can come and find us. We will take turns to discuss with you. As long as you all have talent, we will definitely not keep our skills to ourselves, Guoxiuwen said with a smile. Everyone was very interested, and expressed that they would go and visit them. Ling Han was not greedy. He was now a dual cultivator of martial arts and alchemy, and cultivating 2 Daos at the same time was already a bit difficult for him. What more when he had to add another puppeteer art? Moreover, he had always firmly believed in his own strength. No matter how strong puppets were, they were still external objects, unlike alchemy, where the pills concocted were at least used to strengthen oneself. Shui Yinyu, on the other hand, wanted to see for herself whether she had talent in this area, but was stopped by Ling Han. He did not feel at ease about this place, so it was best that the two of them did not separate to avoid any accidents. He pulled Shui Yinyu out of the village. Now, did the other party still have a reason to keep him in the manor? Brother Ling and Miss Shui are going out? When they arrived at the entrance of the manor, they saw Bu Zhengyun riding a black ape over. causing even Ling Han to suspect whether these people were also legless like Pei Ji. Otherwise, why would they be riding on puppets all day long? Yes, going out for a walk. It's rare to see such beautiful scenery, Ling Han said with a smile. Ho ho, I'll accompany you too. Chapter 1025. Regardless of whether Ling Han and Shui Yinyu were willing or not, Bu Zhengyun was obviously determined to follow them. In his words as the host, he naturally had the duty to accompany his guests and introduce them to his guests. He accompanied Ling Han and Shui Yinyu, and no matter where they went, he would follow their every step. It could be taken as being very enthusiastic, or it could also be taken as monitoring them. Ling Han had originally wanted to go to the various houses in the village, but the moment he deviated from the main path, Bu Zhengyun would speak up to stop them, and use the excuse that the people here did not like to be disturbed to stop them from going over. He even forbade the two of them from talking to the passers-by on the road. This attempt to cover up only made it more obvious, and instead made Ling Han even more suspicious. However, because he had not yet planned to fall out with the Island Master's faction, Ling Han did not take any drastic actions, and returned to the manor after a simple stroll outside. Luo Wu and Fan Yong had both gone to look for Guoxiuan to learn the art of puppetry. If they were really geniuses in this area, then after learning this technique, when they returned to the imperial capital, their status would definitely be able to rise to a whole new level. One would be able to obtain an important position in the clan, and the other would not need to follow Zhao Luan anymore. He would be able to stand on his own, and would have the right to establish his own force. Thus, the two of them were very proactive. At first, Lu Ying did not seem to be interested, but later she seemed to be moved and frequently went out. In comparison, Yang Taiching only wanted to return, Jin Zhihui only had the word sword forging in his eyes, Yin Yuanxiang lived in seclusion, and had always been very unsociable. Meanwhile, Fu Tian was completely uninterested in anything other than cultivation. Time passed day by day, and Luo Wu, Fan Yong, and Lu Ying simply did not return. It was as if they had become addicted to learning the art of puppetry. On the seventh day, Guoxiuan came over to invite Ling Han and Shui Yinyu to view the puppets he was about to make. Ling Han had no interest in learning the art of puppetry, but he was very curious about the uses of puppets. Thus, he readily agreed, and went with Shui Yinyu to the workshop in the manor. There were a total of 2 workshops here, one large and one small. The small workshop was Pei Ji's private property, and even his 5 disciples could only enter after receiving special permission. This was the large workshop. Pei Ji taught the 5 of them how to make puppets here, and they usually practiced here. The workshop was divided into several rooms, and the soundproofing was excellent. Otherwise, how could the people in the other rooms think in peace if they kept banging away? When creating a puppet, from the selection of raw materials to the carving of array patterns and the filling of true origin stones, everything is very particular. Guoxiuan introduced the place as he walked. He led Ling Han and Yi Zichen to a house. This was his territory. The place was huge and filled with all kinds of materials and tools. I've been working on a humanoid puppet for the past few days, and it's almost at the final stage. This time he finally didn't ride on the tiger-shaped puppet, but he still followed by his side. From the back it was no different from a real tiger, but from the front its eyes were obviously too fake. There were 2 red gems embedded in its eyes, and they weren't real eyes. He pointed at a humanoid puppet with an infatuated expression on his face. This puppet's whole body was wrapped in white bandages, so it could only be seen that it was humanoid. As for what it was made of, that was completely indiscernible. The achievement of a puppeteer is to create puppets that can pass off as real. He stroked this half-finished puppet, and revealed an excited expression. He said, "Please enjoy." He cut open the puppet's chest. It was empty inside, and 12 pairs of ribs could be clearly seen. However, they weren't white, but a faint gold color. The bones have all gone through special treatment, and have been plated with a layer of godly metal. Because the raw materials used to create the puppet are of different levels, the level of godly metal plating is also different. For this puppet, level 3 godly metal is enough, Guoxiuan explained to Ling Han and Yi Zichen as he quickly processed the puppet. Take note, every bone has been carved with array patterns. This is very important. After all, this is not a living body. Only by relying on array patterns can every part of it be activated. Moreover, it has to be considered holistically. Otherwise, the fists will be swinging out but the feet will be retreating. This naturally won't do. Guoxiuan was in high spirits. He didn't care whether Ling Han and Yi Zichen understood or were interested. He just continued to talk like that. The last step is to insert true origin stones to activate the array patterns. He took out a dozen or so true origin stones, and then said to Shui Yinyu, Miss Shui, do you want to personally insert true origin stones to activate this puppet? Shui Yinyu hurriedly shook her head. Though she knew this was only a tool, with the concept of human in mind, she naturally felt that such an action was extremely disgusting. Guoxiuan snickered, and didn't try to persuade her further. Instead he said, no matter how powerful an existence is, it will all have its end, and no matter how beautiful a woman, there will also be a moment when she will wither. He stuffed the true origin stones into the puppet's stomach one by one. Then he stared at Shui Yinyu, his eyes burning with passion. Miss Shui, you are so beautiful and enchanting. This kind of appearance, this kind of body, you should remain forever and not age. Otherwise it would be a kind of evil. This has nothing to do with Brother Gua, right? Ling Han interrupted. I've lost my composure, I've lost my composure. Guoxiuan hurriedly apologized as he closed up the chest of the puppet. Of course he didn't use a needle and thread, but rather multiple iron rings. He fastened up the chest area, and after a closer look, he found that the other end of the iron rings was pierced through the spine. Now please enjoy. He took a step back, a fanatical expression on his face. Wang, this puppet suddenly opened its eyes, and then stood up with a whoosh. It seemed to be a little dazed, looking left and right. Every year or so, a kind of substance would seep out from the Earth's core cave, and we call it divine mist. When the divine mist is infused into the puppet, it will trigger an unexpected effect. For example, Guoxiuan said from the side. This puppet suddenly stared at Ling Han, its gaze no longer wandering. Through the gaps of the bandages, it could be seen that a pair of eyes was exuding a light like that of an evil wolf. The humanoid puppet released a low roar, and with a stomp of its foot, it suddenly charged at Ling Han. This burst of speed was extremely fast. It stretched out a hand, and it could be seen that two of its fingers were not wrapped in bandages. They were like metal, and the tips of its fingers were incredibly sharp, exuding a cold luster. Ling Han was unafraid, and greeted the attack with a punch. Pung! In the exchange of blows, Ling Han couldn't help but take a few steps back. Meanwhile, that puppet only trembled slightly, and its figure stabilized. It released another sharp howl, and once again attacked Ling Han. The strength of the middle stage of the high extreme of the mountain river tier, or even the late stage, Ling Han estimated. He activated the divine patterns of gravity, and that puppet instantly staggered, almost falling over. However, Ling Han also frowned, feeling very strained. His opponent only had the strength of the high extreme, yet he felt such a strained feeling. There could only be one reason, and that was that his opponent was too heavy. The same effect of gravity applied on a rock in a mountain naturally consumed completely different amounts of power. Thinking of what Guoxiuan had said before, he said that the skeleton of the puppet was plated with godly metal, so its weight had to be astonishing. What Ling Han didn't understand was why this puppet would attack him. Guoxiuan clearly hadn't given the order. Boom boom boom. The puppet continued to attack, as if it was determined to kill Ling Han. Chapter 1026. Stop! Quick, make it stop! Shui Yinyu called out to Guoxiuan. She was not worried about Ling Han's safety. As long as this damn pervert was not killed instantly, then with his recovery ability, he would be in immortal existence. But who would like to be attacked for no reason? Guoxiuan grinned and said, Miss Shui, I did not give the order to attack. This puppet completely acted on its own. How is that possible? Shui Yinyu said angrily. This puppet was made by you. If you did not give the order, why would it attack? Miss Shui, have you forgotten what I said before? Guoxiuan was not angry at all, and said, a mysterious substance will drift out from the earth's core cave. If it is fused into the puppet, it will produce a very strange effect. Like what? Shui Yinyu calmed down. Ling Han and that puppet were fighting very fiercely, and the victor could not be determined in a short while. Thus she was not anxious. Guoxiuan showed a strange smile, and said, for example, the material will retain a part of its memory. Shui Yinyu did not understand. What did retaining a part of its memory mean? What did it have to do with attacking Ling Han? However, a thought flashed through Ling Han's mind. This puppet couldn't pose any threat to him. Thus, he was completely capable of multitasking. He battled with the puppet while listening to the conversation between Shui Yinyu and Guoxiuan. Could it be? His eyes became serious, and he drew out his divine sword. Each strike was swift and fierce. Shwa 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 shwa. After a few dozen strikes, pieces of cloth flew, and the bandages covering the puppet's face were torn apart, revealing its hidden face. Yes, yes, yes. Shui Yinyu's eyes swept over it, and she could not help but show an expression of extreme shock. No, it should be said that it was fear. Guoxiuan showed a devilish smile and said, not bad, not bad. As you can see, the material of this puppet has retained a considerable amount of its memory. Thus, it will attack without receiving my order. That puppet was shockingly Luo Wu. He disappeared for a few days and was actually made into a puppet? Or was this merely an imitation of Luo Wu's appearance? Ling Han suddenly came to a realization and said, no wonder you don't let us enter the houses of the villagers, let alone communicate with them. They are all puppets. Ha 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 ha. Guoxiuan laughed heartily and clapped his hands continuously. Not bad, not bad. You've guessed it correctly. That's really commendable. After all, there aren't many people like you who can figure it out with just a hint. Ling Han was constantly dodging, and Luo Wu was launching fierce attacks at him. Luo Wu's strongest desire when he was alive had been to kill Ling Han. Thus, after being made into a puppet, this had become a memory that he could not forget. Why, you guys are practically deranged. Shui Yinyu berated. She was naturally aware now that everything the other party had said previously was a lie. They had absolutely no intention of preparing a ship for them to leave. Instead, they were merely trying to keep them here. Wrong. We've actually only turned you guys into eternal puppets, Guoxiuan said with a smile. Think about it. How long can you guys live? How many people can break through to the Sun-Moon tier? You guys can only live for a few 100,000 years at most. Won't you guys still decay and return to heaven and earth? However, after being made into puppets, you guys will forever maintain your current appearance. Miss Shui, you're so alluring, so why don't you keep this kind of beauty forever? He stared at Shui Yinyu. His eyes filled with infatuation. Hey, why don't you guys become your own puppets? Ling Han broke away from Luo Wu and charged toward Guoxiuan. The puppet tiger actually released a furious roar, and the sound waves transformed into multiple circles that surged toward Ling Han. Ling Han's charging figure instantly slowed down, becoming slower and slower. The clothes on his body were also forcefully shredded. He was suddenly sent flying back. He couldn't help but be astonished. The strength of this puppet tiger had actually reached the consummate level of the mountain river tier. In fact, it might even be in the late stage or peak stage of the mountain river tier. Ha ha ha. Since I've let you guys know the secret of this place, how could I not be prepared? Guoxiuan laughed and said, however, don't worry, all of you will be made into puppets. Just thinking about it makes my heart beat faster. A puppet as beautiful as you is, playing with it a few times a day won't be too much. His last sentence was directed at Shui Yinyu. Though this had exposed his dark and perverted fetish in any case, these two people would be made into puppets very soon, so what did it matter even if they knew about it? Shui Yinyu was both embarrassed and angry, and scolded, disgusting. I guarantee that I'll restore you 100% to your original appearance, and there won't be the slightest bit of distortion. An evil light flickered in Guoxiuan's eyes. He had absolutely no interest in normal beauties. Only after being made into an icy cold puppet would he be able to arouse his perverted desires. Not only him, but the 6 of them, master and disciples, were all such perverts. Hoo. Luo Wu and the puppet tiger both attacked Ling Han ferociously, especially the puppet tiger. Its battle prowess was as high as the consummate level, and it wasn't a real living being, so it didn't have any vital points to speak of. Its muscles, skin, and bones had all been reforged, and it was practically a human-shaped weapon. Ling Han channeled his divine patterns of gravity, but immediately showed signs of strain. That puppet tiger was even heavier than Luo Wu, so it was really a huge challenge for Ling Han to make the divine patterns of gravity work on it. Shui Yanyu gave a soft shout and drew her sword to join the battle. Guoxiuwen, however, didn't make a move. He merely crossed his legs at the side, appearing to be full of confidence. Of these 2 people, one was in the early stage of the medium extreme, while the other was in the peak stage of the low extreme. Theoretically, even Luo Wu would be able to suppress them. What more when there was a puppet tiger with battle prowess in the late stage of the consummate level? He was standing guard here because he was afraid that these 2 puppets wouldn't hold back, and would tear Shui Yanyu to shreds. Soon, an expression of surprise appeared on his face because he discovered that Ling Han's defenses were really quite terrifying. He was actually able to withstand the attacks of the 2 puppets, which was inconceivable to him. What a genius! His surprise immediately turned into wild joy. This person's physique is incredibly tough, and it's worth using level 5 or even level 6 godly metal to cast his skeleton. Although he's only in the medium extreme of the mountain river tier, I'm confident that I can inscribe sun-moon tier formation patterns on his bones. At that time he'll be a sun-moon tier puppet. Master also only has 2 pseudo-sun-moon tier puppets. If I can refine a sun-moon tier puppet, I'll be able to replace him and control all the resources here. After killing this person, I'll hide him and lie that his body was too damaged, so he couldn't be refined into a puppet, and I've already disposed of him. In any case, Master and Junior brothers only care about this woman. When I learn how to refine sun-moon tier puppets, I'll suddenly become the new master of this place. Xiao. Right at this moment, Ling Han broke through the encirclement and charged toward him. To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. Chapter 1028. Why you can't kill me, or else my master will definitely not let you off, Guoxiuwen said in a trembling voice. Ling Han shook his head and said, I thought that a pervert like you would be cruel to others, and also cruel to yourself. Why are you so spineless? He waved his hand and tossed Luo Wu's corpse out. This was really a corpse because the true origin stones inside had already been extracted, and the formation patterns had also been destroyed. Aside from the fact that the skeleton was still relatively hard, there was not much difference between this and an ordinary corpse. You dealt with this puppet, right? Ling Han pointed at the corpse and said, You dug out all the internal organs of a person. With such ruthlessness, you would be afraid if it was your turn. Guoxiuwen's entire body trembled, and he defended himself. No, it's not the same. That's just a material, not a person. Ling Han was slightly surprised. This person's outlook on life had already been completely twisted. He was obviously greedy for life, but his methods were incredibly vile and cruel. He slapped him and said, I don't want to read your dirty memories. Just answer my questions. Shui Yanyu walked over and pressed the tip of her sword against Guoxiuwen's neck. She said, What's the point of wasting words with this kind of person? Just kill him. No. Guoxiuwen was scared to death. Don't kill me. I'll tell you what you want to know, please don't kill me. Amidst his screams, the sound of urine could be heard. This guy had actually wet his pants in fear. Shui Yanyu hurriedly covered her nose and hid far away. Ling Han also wanted to kick him. It was really rare to see someone so afraid of death. He said coldly, Then tell me everything you know. Okay, I'll tell. Guoxiuwen nodded repeatedly. He began to tell a story. As early as 30,000 years ago, he had already become Peiji's disciple. At that time he should have only been 6 or 7 years old, perhaps 2 years older, or perhaps 2 years younger. This had already become a blurry memory. In these 30,000 years he learned martial arts and puppetry from Peiji, and in this process he also gained 4 junior brothers. Before, he did not know how he had become Peiji's disciple, but he saw his own shadow in these 4 junior brothers. Although this island was very remote, there were always all kinds of accidents at sea, such as tsunamis or encounters with pirates. For decades or centuries there were people who occasionally drifted here, but they were all refined into puppets by Peiji. Sometimes there were refugees with children, and Peiji would pick those with good aptitude and take them as disciples. However, when he discovered that they had no future, he would mercilessly kill them. Because of this, Guoxiuan deduced that he was also a descendant of some refugee. His parents and relatives had been killed by Peiji, but because of his good aptitude, he was spared and accepted as a disciple. At that time he had not remembered anything or pay must him, but because he pay he dao and nxt. However, even though he had deduced the truth, he didn't dare to harbor the slightest bit of hatred toward Peiji. This was because Peiji possessed 2 pseudo-Sun Moon tier puppets. Even if the 5 of them teamed up, they would still be insta-killed. Peiji was an outstanding puppeteer, but he seemed to have been traumatized by something, and had no desire to display his talent. He became the local tyrant of this island, bringing nightmares to those who drifted here. As for where Peiji had come from, and where he had learned puppetry, Guoxiuan did not know. He only knew that the sinkhole was very mysterious. Every year, a mysterious substance would drift out. It was like mist, and after being captured and fused with the body of a puppet, it could make the puppet even stronger. Moreover, it would normally take a few months to create a puppet, but with the help of the divine mist it could be completed in a few days. Divine Mist Ling Han was a little curious and asked, "Where is it? Let me see." Guoxiuan crawled to his feet, trembling. He opened a cabinet, took out a jade bottle and said, "The divine mist is sealed inside." His eyes were lowered, and a sinister look flashed in his eyes. This divine mist was very helpful for creating puppets, but if a living person breathed in, their mind would be directly corroded, and they would become a weapon that only knew how to kill. They were very similar to puppets, except that they would not listen to orders. Then, as long as he dealt with Ling Han, he would not be afraid of the remaining woman. Ling Han took the bottle, and naturally would not rashly open it. Instead, he threw Guoxiuan into the Black Tower, and then entered with Shui Yenyu. To study the unknown, it was naturally the safest to do it in the Black Tower. Small Tower, analyze what this is. Ling Han threw the jade bottle out, and with a thought the jade bottle was instantly shattered. A black mist immediately surged in the air, transforming into various forms. One moment it was a beast, the next moment it was a bird, and the next moment it was a human. However, there was a single horn on its forehead and a tail on its buttocks. Demonic Qi. Small Tower appeared, and said almost at the same time as Ling Han. This was definitely demonic Qi. Ling Han had seen it in the lower realm, but although it was only a wisp, it was far stronger than the Azura Demon Emperor's. Oh right. With a thought, the Azura Demon Emperor was captured by Ling Han. This demon had always been exiled in the Black Tower. Greetings, Master. Master is as blessed as the heavens, and has boundless longevity. The Azura Demon Emperor said very obsequiously, vividly displaying the appearance of a despicable person. He glanced at Shui Yenyu, and immediately knelt again, saying, "Greetings, Madam. Master really has good taste. Madam is as beautiful as a goddess, and has an elegant bearing. She is definitely a peerless beauty that only appears once in millions and millions of years." Shui Yenyu was stunned. How could there be such an obsequious person? Did he have no shame? Ling Han humphed and said, "Don't say such nonsense. Quick, tell me the origin of that demonic Qi." Yes. The Azura Demon Emperor hurriedly nodded and bowed, looking at that wisp of demonic Qi. His smoke-like body involuntarily moved violently, and he said in a trembling voice, This is a wisp of Demon Master's demonic Qi." Demon Master, Ling Han glared at him and said, "Speak more clearly." The Azura Demon Emperor didn't have any temper now, and nodded and bowed again. In the immortal realm, Genesis tier is called Saint, and in our netherworld, Elites of this level are called demon masters. Shui Yinyu was surprised and interrupted. He's actually a demonic being of the netherworld. This lowly one is. Madam's eyes are indeed like a torch. Under your wisdom, all of my thoughts are like sunlight, and have nowhere to hide. The Azura Demon Emperor flattered madly. Ling Han was shocked. This was actually the aura left behind by a demon master on the same level as Genesis tier. Hold on, in the flame cave of the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm, wasn't there a passageway suppressed? And a being who called himself Demon Master Zhani was trying his best to fight his way over? Hiss, he had actually argued with a great elite of the Genesis tier. Madam's beauty is like the sun in the sky, and can blind one's eyes. Madam's temperament is like the bright moon, so pure that it makes one feel ashamed of their inferiority. The Azura Demon Emperor was still shamelessly praising Shui Yinyu, but he suddenly pounced toward that wisp of demonic qi. Ha 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 ha, as long as I fuse with this wisp of demonic qi, my strength will greatly increase, and I'll recover to the battle prowess of the mountain river tier. Killing you all will be as easy as slaughtering chickens, he shouted excitedly. Chapter 1029. The Azura Demon Emperor was also a coward. In order to survive, he had kneeled before Ling Han, who was in the heaven tier back then. As the saying went, a man could bend and stand tall, and he kept bending so that he could one day straighten his back like a little brother. Now was the best chance. He passed through the barrier of two realms, and forced his way into a small world. His battle prowess was greatly reduced, and he only had 15 stars of Shattering Void tier battle prowess left. Thus, he knew that he was no match for a freak like Ling Han. But as long as he absorbed this wisp of demonic qi, his battle prowess could recover to the low extreme of the mountain river tier. No matter how freakish Ling Han was, could he match the power of immortals? What a joke! The demonic qi was already right in front of him, and the Azura Demon Emperor revealed an intoxicated expression. Being able to absorb this wisp of demonic qi on the level of a demon master would greatly improve him, because there was a sliver of a demon master's comprehension of martial art within it. For beings of the immortal realm this was a fatal poison, but for beings of the netherworld like him it was a super tonic. Moreover, it was only a sliver, or else he wouldn't dare to swallow anymore, or he would definitely explode. The Genesis tier was too strong. 1 inch, half an inch. Why couldn't he move forward? The Azura Demon Emperor turned around in shock, only to see that Ling Han's large hand had already grabbed him firmly, making him unable to move forward at all. Not bad, now you're more courageous, Ling Han said with a smile. Master, I'm innocent. The Azura Demon Emperor was originally in the form of smoke, and didn't have a physical body. He immediately stretched his body and hugged Ling Han's thigh. I was just muddled by greed, and my heart was blinded by lard. Master, just treat what I said as nonsense. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, You really want to swallow this mass of demonic qi? Please reward me, Master. The Azura Demon Emperor's face was filled with a fawning expression. Ling Han, don't be fooled by him, Shui Yinyu said. This Demon Emperor was too two-faced. The Azura Demon Emperor's heart instantly clenched. Ling Han seemed to have the intention to relent, but with Shui Yinyu's persuasion, this matter was about to be dropped. All right, I'll bestow it to you, Ling Han said with a smile. Demonic qi was poison to him, and it would only bring harm and no benefit. He loosened his grip. The Azura Demon Emperor was overjoyed that he had regained his freedom. He immediately opened his mouth and swallowed that ball of demonic qi. Hong! His body was expanding as if he had become a balloon. However, he quickly shrunk back and returned to his normal size. There didn't seem to be any difference, but one could clearly sense that the Azura Demon Emperor's aura was rapidly increasing. In an instant, he broke through the divine state and exuded an aura that was as vast as the ocean. Mountain river tier, low extreme, peak stage. Ha 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 ha. The Azura Demon Emperor instantly laughed loudly, appearing to be very proud of himself. Ling Han, oh Ling Han, you're really too stupid. You actually allowed me to recover my strength. Today I'll show you what immortal level power is. Shui Yinyu was dumbfounded. Naturally, it wasn't because she was shocked by the Azura Demon Emperor's strength, but rather because he was so shameless. He actually changed his attitude faster than flipping the page of a book. Previously, he had still called her master, but now he was so shameless and arrogant. Did he have any shame? Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, I've recovered my strength to the peak stage of the low extreme of the mountain river tier. How did you know? The Azura Demon Emperor couldn't help but be surprised. It wasn't strange for him to know the level of immortal level, but how could he see through his cultivation level so easily? Just thinking about it made him feel strange and gave him an ominous feeling. Ling Han sighed and said, Little Azura, how many years have you been here? Don't call me little brother. I'm the Azura Demon Emperor. The Azura Demon Emperor was flustered and exasperated. He was willing to be a little brother because a man could bow and submit when necessary. Did he think he was shameless, and born to be a lowly wretch? No. Ling Han continued, You've become stupid after being locked up. Did you think that my strength wouldn't increase after so many years? The Azura Demon Emperor's expression finally changed drastically. This brat was a freak, and he couldn't be measured with common sense. Ling Han smiled faintly and released his aura. Instantly, an aura that was far more powerful than the Azura Demon Emperor surged out. Master! The Azura Demon Emperor immediately pounced at Ling Han's feet, hugged his thigh, and rubbed his face against it. I've really missed you too much. One day without you feels like 3 years. Shui Yinyu grimaced. She was already completely speechless. Weren't you quite fierce just then? Ling Han asked slowly. Just then, that was because I had a split personality, the Azura Demon Emperor said seriously. Master, when people are locked up for a long time, they will become mentally deranged and develop a second personality. This is what happened to me. However, don't worry, Master, I've already destroyed this personality. From now on, I'll be your most loyal dog. If you tell me to go east, I won't dare to go west. Ling Han stared at him and said, I've already given you 2 chances. If the Azura Demon Emperor could sweat, he would definitely be covered in cold sweat by now. However, he still wiped his forehead out of habit. After all, he had possessed the body of a human for a long time, and this was a habit. Don't worry, Master. I definitely won't make the same mistake a 3rd time. He vowed solemnly. This time he was really frightened by Ling Han. It had only been a few years, and Ling Han had advanced from the heaven tier to the immortal level. Moreover, he hadn't just advanced to the mountain river tier, but had reached the medium extreme. If this continued, wouldn't he become a Genesis tier in a few hundred or a few thousand years? There were no disadvantages to having such a master. Instead, there were only advantages. The Azura Demon Emperor definitely had an extremely realistic personality. His attitude instantly changed. As long as Ling Han could maintain this kind of progress, he was willing to completely submit and become an obedient dog. He knew that even as a dog, he would be an incredibly noble dog. Even people countless times stronger than him would have to be respectful to him. Ling Han nodded and said, This is the last chance. There definitely won't be a 3rd time. Thank you, Master. Thank you, Master. The Azura Demon Emperor was overjoyed. Ling Han planned to completely subdue the Azura Demon Emperor because the characteristics of the Azura Demon Emperor were actually quite useful. For example, he could enter a puppet. I'll leave this puppet to you. Possess it and fight for me in the future. Ling Han summoned the puppet tiger. The Azura Demon Emperor didn't have any objections to possessing a human or a dog. He immediately accepted the order and burrowed into the puppet tiger. Instantly, this fierce tiger began to move. Master, this is a consummate level vessel. He immediately became excited. One had to know that even at his peak, he was only in the medium extreme. He was still very, very far away from the consummate level. Not satisfied. Satisfied. 100% satisfied, 1000% satisfied. The Azura Demon Emperor was extremely excited. Ling Han nodded and said, As long as you obediently work for me, I can still give you Sun Moon tier and Heavenly Body tier vessels in the future. In fact, it's not impossible for me to obtain some Genesis tier demonic chi for you to swallow. Master, you're really too good to me. I'm willing to do anything for you. The Azura Demon Emperor floated out of the puppet tiger and went to hug Ling Han's thigh again. This time, even if he had obtained such a powerful vessel, he didn't dare to have the slightest bit of disloyalty. This thing had been seized by Ling Han. His master was really too strong. He could even trample to death those at the consummate level. It was more refreshing to read on his phone. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.